Greetings. I switch platforms. New tab, new window. Refresh, refresh. Start anew, start again. All is a blessing. Yes. To Africa, she's calling your name through the wind. Come back home to Africa. The fatted calf and golden ring are waiting for you once again. Coming back to you. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. To Africa, she's calling your name through the wind. Come back home to Africa. The fatted calf and golden ring are waiting for you once again. I'm longing for my family. Coming back to you. Alafia Habargani, out of bondage and now I am free. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da da da. Da da da. Greetings, welcome, divine all blessed. Come on in. Alafia, Alafia, come on in. Welcome. Invite a friend. Come on in. Welcome. Greetings and salutations. Invite a frenemy. I don't care, but come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. The house is open. The classroom is open. The school is open. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome. And the stars of my show are the callers. The callers. Come on in with your questions, your comments. Greetings. Salutations. Love and light. And if you can hear me, my number is 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. When you are ready with your question, comment, or request, please do press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I will be more than happy to open your mic and bring you into the conversation. Come on home. Come on home. Come on home.
Come back home
to Africa. Come back home. Come back home. Come back home.
Come back home
to Africa. Come back home. Greetings, chat. Greetings, Kiona. Greetings, Dimarcus Art. Greetings, beloved neophyte Bokor tourist. I love that name. Greetings, greetings, Think Bruner. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for being present. Thank you. Indeed, it is, as always, divine, all blessed. Peace and love, joy and prosperity, elevation, relevations, manifestations. You are now listening live to the DivinePrince. And always an archive at your leisure and convenience. Sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective, understanding that all is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see beyond the veils, for it is all just an illusion and a test and one of the greatest divine mysteries of this life cycle. This is my constant prayer, my mantra, affirmation, reverberation, and it is my ever-living reality. It is crucial to the very foundation of my understanding, my teaching, my walk, my works along this divine, all blessed, all that we are challenged with here in our daily existence on Mother, Father, Earth. And it is my personal place of power and understanding, the place from where I begin, the place from where I realize and crystallize all my endeavors, understanding that I and I alone create and co create my divine destiny, and I alone create and co create my divine, all blessed reality. And so it is. Ashe. Ashe, oh, Ashe. Some say, Aye, Bobo. Indeed, a blessing. Please, beloved, I appreciate those who love the show, support the show, um, call into the show, tweet into the show. You just can't call me live during the show. All is a blessing. I just can't take a call through my cell phone. I can take a call through my platform on Blog Talk Radio. And many of you already know that that number is area code 347 I'm reciting my own number. Please forgive me. My new number is area code 845 277 9143. 845 277 9143. When you're ready with your question, comment, or request, I have three people with their hands already raised. Area code 323, area code 314, area code 304, in that exact order. And I'll be coming to you just momentarily. I appreciate people calling in, participating, supporting. Those are my stars. Those are my co-hosts who call in at area code 845-277-9143 with their questions, comments, and requests. Some of you are on device. I get that, and I honor you. So please type your questions in all capital letters if you are able to do so. Sometimes people are randomly blocked for spam for some reason because of the algorithm, and they are unable to type in all capital letters. So I ask you to use punctuation, appropriate punctuation, question marks, etc., and quotation marks, so that both myself and Kiona, our chat room moderator, um, soon to be co-host, but she don't know it yet. Can bring you into the conversation and allow me to see your questions, comments, and requests, and even your greetings in a much more clear fashion without me having to lean into the screen. And of course, Kayla Talk, and anyone else, HG, that I may have missed or neglected because I didn't see your name. I welcome each and every one of you individually, collectively, to this squared circle of gods and goddesses. And as I often say, as I typically say at the beginning of this show, the creation of sacred space is crucial, is necessary, is mandatory to the development of any sacred pursuit, to any spiritual pursuit, whether it be in the body, whether it be in the mind, whether it be in the spirit, whether it be in the environment. We call that environment feng shui. You know, that's one way we reference the environment. The move of energy in us, but also around us. So the creation of sacred space is critical, is crucial to any spiritual pursuit, to any spiritual endeavor. And understand it's not just the stuff. Particularly right now, some of you, getting low on your candle stock. You might not be able to go and get your candles. You might not be able to order your candles. Some of you are getting low on supplies that you can't order. Epsom salt, so far it's not a run on Epsom salt. So far there's not a run on ammonia. So far it's not a run on honey. So there are items, of course, that we can order, that we can have delivered, that we can have shipped. But sometimes when you're in a bind, when you're in a crunch, when you're in a tight space, when you're in a confined space, when you're locked in, when you're shut in, when you're sick, you don't, and when you don't have resources. You don't readily have means to material, carnal, physical items, icons and books, texts, uh, 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 religious notions and potions and whatnot. And so, indeed, your creative space, your sacred space, must be created within. Uh, all traditions in the ancient world, all traditions in the indigenous world speak of the body temple and the priority that we must take, that we must consider in how we operate within our body temple. For indeed, we are physical man and woman. We are physical humanity, let's say. But we are more spiritual than anything. We're more energetic than anything. Our power is in our spirit. Understand me. This is not taught in school. This is not stressed in school, though it is implied in some cases. It is referenced to in some cases, sort of like this, you know. But we are God incarnate. We are God manifest in a physical body. And some of you who are operating still from that magical book, you know the one. Even he said, even your prophet said that greater works that I do, ye shall do. And so we are indeed a physical, clay, earthen, humanoid manifestation of the divine creator itself. And so we have access to the inheritance of our foremothers and our forefathers. That's ancestral. But we also have access to the inheritance of our divine creator. And so it is that which we aspire to grow to. And so in doing so, we create sacred space and we guard our inner temple as well as our outer temple, particularly in these sedentary times for some of us. Some of us are a little bit more active now that you have time physically, and you can always exercise. You can always take long walks, long drives, to the country, to the rural area, to the isolated track, to the isolated field. But stay away from the playground. Stay away from places where you got to make, physical contact with things. And thus, we understand that we have to evolve now. We're on God's timeout. We're on the goddess's timeout right now, so that we can grow, so that we can develop, so that we can achieve the next level. And I've been predicting it for many of my callers, many of my clients, many of my readings, many of my divinations are showing up the star quality, the wealth, the prosperity that exists in your hands right now, in your hands right now, in your mind right now. I say in your hands because you can paint it, you can create it, you can write it, you can make it. Intellectual property. I had this conversation with my mom yesterday about how the idea, the awareness of intellectual property came along with technology and the internet, but now how that has developed in terms of what we consider is of value, what we consider is sellable. When we think about music and movies and the cinema, and we know that to be intellectual property, but not just because it's on celluloid, not just because it's on a CD. Now it's being delivered to your home through Hulu, through Netflix, through Amazon, through brands individually, in and of themselves. And so we're talking about intellectual property, something that is not necessarily held in the hands, but comes from the mind, comes from the third chakra. I'm sorry, from the third eye, the sixth chakra, the seventh chakra, the eighth chakra, etc. Comes from our higher octaves in terms of energy output. Our lower octaves keep us alive, keep us functioning, keep us in survival, keep us in maintenance, if you will. Make sure that we feed ourselves, house ourselves, cleanse ourselves, take care of our children, take care of our loved ones, and meet our needs. Those are those sort of result oriented things that we expect, anticipate, move within that are physical, that are carnal, that are material, and those are necessary to life. But then there's that spiritual maintenance, cleansing, purification, spiritual feeding that has to take place. Some of you don't read, haven't been reading, long since lost the habit or the notion of reading through life. You got caught up in life. Now is an opportunity to focus on that again. I can't tell you how many times I hear that from a godchild, from a caller, from an initiate, that whether it be focus, whether it be skill, whether it be hola beloved, hola como está usted, ustedes. I know that's proper, but como está? And so yeah, I know some people, might struggle or just have a little bit of challenge, with reading, with studying, with putting those words together. Some of us are sort of over consumed with the hidden qualities in words, which could be a good thing when you're doing that consciously and in focus. But when you're constantly dissecting every word, as I often do, it can sometimes get in the way of you staying on track, staying on course, particularly in communications. Many of you have seen me do that here on the show, live on air. I can talk, I can digress, I can get long off track from the point. Now I have godchildren, I have family members, I have friends who are right there. My sister Wapani, every detour, she's there, and we can always come right back to the main subject. But I find that comes with people who are indeed erudite, but also spiritual, and take that time to examine not just your first stimuli, which comes through your body, but then that sub stimuli that operates through the spirit. And to some degree, the spirit comes before the physical. I get it before the phone rings. You get it when you pass a stranger or meet someone anew from afar, but you already start registering that feeling, that idea of goodness or negativity, or this person might be out to do me good, or this person might be out to do us harm. And so we all know there have been occasions where our body has tricked us. You think you heard something and you jump. You think you felt something, an insect on you, but it was a leaf, a string, a piece, hanging from your clothing. So again, we have which requires an awareness which requires an awareness within the dream. We have to have lucidity, even in our feelings, even in our emotions. How many times have you jumped the gun emotionally when you thought it was an insult when it was a misunderstanding? When you thought it was a read when it was something else? When you thought they were saying A when really B was being said? So we can jump the gun as humans. We talked about animal totems and animal nature yesterday, thanks to Hoodoo occultism, who called in with the powerful question about animal totems. And I spoke of how we as humans have nature in our bodies. We have earth, water, fire, air, and of course, ether or the gases or the spirit realms, which connects to our mind as well as our body within us. So we do respond sometimes like a cat. We do respond sometimes like a bird. We do respond sometimes in the appropriate occasion like an aquatic creature. And of course, we could always talk about alien intervention and reptilian creatures if y'all want to go there, and talk about other uh, theories as well as conspiracy theories, as well as ancient stories that point to other ways of viewing what's happening in our world, what's happening around us. I'm going to go to my phone lines now. I've held you up long enough. I'm going to say everybody's area code 3 times. That way, if there is a duplicate area code, I'll have the opportunity to say your area code 323, for instance, and then I'll say the exchange. Um, It also gives you an opportunity to get ready 323 because you know by the time I say the third uh, numbers that I'll be ready ready to open your mic. So area code 323, your mic is open. Who's calling and where are you calling from?
This is Kiana. Hey.
Greetings, beloved. How you
I'm back.
doing?
I am good. I'm real good.
I'm glad to hear it.
Another day in the land I've been living.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's a part of my be affirmation. At the end of the day, be alive. Whether you think this is real or not, whether you think this is a hoax or not, whether you think it's coming from the 5G system or not, people is dying. People are dying.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, whatever you do, take care, be careful, be clean, be distant right now from people, and be alive. My goodness, be alive. Yes, indeed, Kiana. What you got to say today?
I have come to I was all stressed out yesterday over nothing. And then I just had an epiphany. I would rather be paid than right. I was trying to prove a wrong. Somebody had wronged me with the trucker, and I was just trying to prove it. I was stressed out, and I was just working so hard. And I was like, you know what? Mm-mm. It's not worth it because at the end of the day, do I really want to die like this?
That's right.
Do I really want to die not having accomplished what I came here to accomplish and having to come back? Because I don't want to come back to this.
Mm-hmm. Now you sound like
So I made a decision.
Now you sound like Tina Marie.
Be.
Now you sound like Tina Marie in Deja Vu. Thank God I'm not coming back here no more.
Look, I can't. I got to move on.
Yes.
I got to move on. I need to get off the short yellow bus, take off my helmet, and I got to go on to the next. There's something else beyond this, and I got to get there in a hurry.
And you know what? And you know what the hurry is? You know what the shortcut to that is? Girlfriend, you got to do that homework. You got to do the homework. We, each and every one of us, subcontracted, if you will, with the divine creators and the ancestors to be here to do a job, a specific job. Now I hear you. I don't understand what it is. I can't see it. It's not clear to me. I'm having trouble figuring out. I'm having trouble. I get that. Caller, listener, whoever it might be. I don't mean just you, Kiona, beloved, but we are all here to do something. And so the quickest way to not have to come back here and reincarnate and live this life again and confront whatever new challenges will exist in the future, because you would ultimately be coming back in the future, is to do the work, Kiona, I know I got you on mute, beloved. I'm going to come right back to you because I got so many callers. I don't want them to get impatient and start dropping off. You might not know that, but that happens. Area code 314, beloved, 314. I hear nature behind you. I hear birds and nature sounds behind you.
You hear birds?
I sure do.
You are indeed correct. Hi, Uncle Ty. It's Jamie.
Greetings, beloved. How you doing?
Oh my God! I finally got to talk to you. Hi, how are you?
All is a blessing. All is a blessing. Just being happy, being hopeful, being at peace.
Here. And that's all I can do.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
That's all I can do. I just wanted to, I'm not going to, I know you said you got a lot of calls on here, but I'm not going to hold you or anything. I just wanted to say hello, I love you, I listen to you, all that.
I love you, I listen to you as well, and please, be different. Be well, be safe, be happy, be at peace, but stay home. Be safe, stay home.
I am.
Okay.
I am. Believe me, I am staying home.
Yeah. But thank you. You can always stay online. I'm going to keep your line open, but just mute yourself so that I don't hear. I mean, you don't have to mute the bird sounds. But if you got other kind of background sounds going on, You can then mute yourself, and then when you want to say something again, just open your mic again and jump back in. I'm going to also
All right,
reopen Keona's
I'm just
mic
gonna sit here in silence.
and,
Well, shoot.
and ask her
Of
to
course,
hold on for
you
me.
know what? I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna go back tune into your live, and I'm about to go fix me something to eat. I haven't
Okay.
eaten yet, so yeah.
Enjoy, beloved.
Okay.
Enjoy. Area code
Thank you.
305. I'm coming to you next, 305. Area code 305. Who's calling and where are you calling from? Area code 305. Please turn down the show and answer your phone. Your hand is raised. Did you have a question or comment, beloved? Okay, 305. I'm just gonna come back to you. So Keona, it's just you and me right now whose mics are open on the phone lines, beloved. And of course,
Okay, real five. That's Keisha. Jimmy forgot because she's in the chat right now.
well, you got a better memory than me. It's so hard to keep up with everything and everybody. And the show switchboard does not save the name. So every day I have to type the names in anew. Every time someone calls. That's why I ask who's calling, where you calling from, and then I type that in anew for each broadcast. Before I move on, beloved, I want to set sort of a foundation for today, and particularly today, which is the foundational day. It is the day that we acknowledge the powers, the spirits. That's today we acknowledge the warriors. We acknowledge the machete. We acknowledge iron. We acknowledge the cauldron pot. We acknowledge the crossbow. We acknowledge the hoe, the gardening tool. I don't mean, yeah, the gardening tool. We acknowledge the hoe. We acknowledge prosperity and abundance and the efforts, both literally and figuratively, that go into life and the furtherance of life. Before you can look at abundance, before you can look at prosperity, we must look at life. We must look at nature. And there is no voodoo indigenous spirits. Some might say Indian spirits, but more appropriately, indigenous spirits. We indeed have incorporated the power and the presence and the lore of indigenous spirits, even in Louisiana voodoo, even in Mississippi Delta voodoo, even in New Orleans voodoo. Many of you know my masking black carnival tribe represents Black Hawk, which is a powerful deity that was introduced to us here in New Orleans by Mother Leafy. Mother Leafy Anderson brought him to New Orleans with the spiritualist church movement in the early 20th century. Black Hawk has played a central role and symbolic role in the fight against oppression and discrimination among devotees of Black Hawk, but also at the grassroots level, at the community, on the streets, if you will, here in the city of New Orleans, and particularly in certain neighborhoods of the city of New Orleans. Black Hawk is venerated as an ancestral spirit among the Mardi Gras Indians. New Orleans voodooists, as well as root workers and conjure doctors and others, acknowledge Black Hawk and the power of not just Black Hawk, but indigenous powers here in the Americas who assisted us on our journey in the Americas, who fight with us sometimes, fought alongside of us, sometimes gave us survival skills, sometimes in order to escape oppression, in order to escape literal enslavement. And so Mother Leafy, by way of the Black Spiritualist Church, brought Black Hawk to New Orleans, introduced Black Hawk to New Orleans. And so he's a spirit that's close to my heart, that I operate strongly in. And I give a lot of credit to Denise Alvarado, who may or may not be listening, for her written works as it relates to not just hoodoo, root work, and conjure, and voodoo here in New Orleans, but even more specifically to the acknowledgement and the sharing of Black Hawk. But we can look at the greater Pan African diaspora, the greater trans African diaspora, if you will, and see uh, elements of indigenous honor and worship when we stand up for our ancestors, when we say egu mopeo, famini alafia, famini ire, famini iwapele, mandope pupo, ashe, o ashe. We are not just calling up Nigeria. We are not just calling up Ghana. We are not just calling up West Africa, but we are calling up the Eguns in our bloodline. We are raising up the DNA like a crystal within us. And so, whatever ancestry stands up in us comes through. And I invite you, I got an email today. I got yet more ancestry relatives through my email. You know, you get an alert every time someone that is related to you by blood takes the DNA test. And so 23andMe, because you know I use two sites, 23andMe and Ancestry.com, sent me this email earlier today suggesting that I have yet more new, greater relatives who now have taken the ancestry test. And so we have a certain degree of indigenous blood that stands up in our ancestry. So keep checking in. I've suggested to you before that these ancestry tests are often updated. Um, Sometimes once a month, but now it's coming a little bit more frequently, where the indigenous bloodlines, particularly of people of color, because that's where the bulk of the controversy seems to exist, know that that information about indigenous ancestry is constantly being updated. Another ethnic group, if you will, another region that acknowledges the African, the indigenous, the wholeness of humanity, even that which is European and Eurocentric within us is Venezuela. And I love Maria Lionza, which is it's called a cult, but it's a spiritual practice that comes out of Venezuela. Often something is called cult or occult or pagan when we want to put it in a negative Western light, in the light of Judaism, in the light of Islam, in the light of Christianity. So we know Catholicism is strong. And so Catholicism is strong in Venezuela. So Maria Lionza in Venezuela is called a cult practice, not necessarily a cultural practice, as might be seen in Cuba or Brazil, even closer. I don't have to go so far from Venezuela. We can look at Brazil. Maria Leonza is the highest and most important deity in the pantheon of the cult. Sorry, on Blog Talk Radio, while at the same time trying to maneuver my device with my left hand to get my YouTube to stop buffering and get things back on track. So if you missed it, Maria Lionza is the central figure of the so-called cult practice of Maria Lionza. In the looking for information, in the reading of information, in the study of information, they're often talking at it almost in the third person because you keep looking for the practice, what's it called, the religion, what's it called, you know, this spiritism, what is it called, and it's referred to as Maria Lionza, but they say the cult of Maria Lionza, and she is part of a pantheon of deities that stand up in practice. She is part of a trinity of saints known as the Tres Potencias. I hope my Spanish is together. Tres Potencias, or three powers, the three powers. The other two figures that stand up in this trinity of three powers are Guaquepuro, an Indian chief murdered by Spanish colonialists, and a Negro figure or a black figure known as Felipe, an African slave who was also murdered by Spanish colonialists. These saints are the leading figures of the pantheon and lead several courts of lesser deities. When we say courts, it's similar to Dominican Republican voodoo, um, 21 divisions. And so they have divisions, whereas in Venezuela, they have courts within the practice of voodoo. In Haitian voodoo, you have Nago, you have Rada, you have Petuo, another way of examining houses, courts, but more importantly, ethnic groups, and the traditions that followed specific voodoo ethnic groups. And when I say voodoo, I mean Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, wherever they were brought from, Senegal, their indigenous practice and belief would be under the umbrella of what we now reference as voodoo. Um, so those three powers, the African saint, martyr, if you will, the Indian or indigenous martyr, and then Maria Lionza is often viewed as an Oshun like, Frida like figure. Um, she's often depicted as either Creole or light of skin. In some cases, she's depicted as white. She's often wearing royal attire, crowns, and jewels and things of wealth. Um, in her imagery, in the symbolism in which we know Maria Lionza. She often operates in some of the requests and petitions that we often associate with Frida, Urzu Lee, or a Oshun like deity. The courts that exist within this Venezuelan African voodoo are the Indian court, led by Maria Lionza and composed of many Venezuelan Indian chiefs or indigenous chiefs. There is a medicinal court led by Jose Gregorio Hernandez and composed of many other famous doctors. There is the court of wands, made up of a number of figures belonging to Venezuelan folklore. And that's a real nice, soft way of saying revolutionaries who stood up and fought, often were martyrs in the cause of civilization for the indigenous people, civilization for the enslaved people. There's a court of teachers led by Andres Bello and some other writers, poets, literary figures within the Venezuelan culture and community. There is the Black and African court led by popular black figures of Venezuelan history, such as La Negra Matea, Matea, who was a slave brought to the Bolivias, and Nanny, she was the nanny of Simon Bolivar. Simon Bolivar is a local street here in New Orleans, and so we acknowledge and reverence historically Simon Bolivar, even here in New Orleans, even this far north. New Orleans is often described as the farthest or the furthest northern Caribbean city. It's often also referred to as the most African city in North America. So Simon Bolivar is a figure in the black or African voodoo courts that we see in Venezuela. And for those who are just coming in anew, I'm talking about voodoo worldwide. That's another way to title this show. I'm talking about voodoo worldwide, and I'm talking about specifically today, as we acknowledge figures like Oshosi and Orisha Oko and Papa Ogun, that the acknowledgement of indigenous or so-called Indian misnomer indigenous figures in the New Americas, how they show up in voodoo, how they stand up in voodoo, how they became a part of the pantheon of deities that we acknowledge in voodoo. And these indigenous figures are acknowledged in Yoruba culture, are acknowledged in Ifa practice, are acknowledged in Santeria, in Lukumi, in Palo, in Louisiana voodoo, and of course south of the border, which is what I'm looking at right now. I also often talk about Venezuela, Argentina, Brazil, Honduras, because we often have a very limited view of Black America. When we say Black America, we think we're talking about Black people in America. We are not considering North America, Canada. We're not considering South America, Central America, often when we say Black America. And so our language has to evolve, our awareness has to evolve. When we look at what voodoo is and truly educate ourselves about what voodoo is, as I have done and continue to do over the years, you then have to look at your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your grandmas, your great grandmas, your grandparents, your great grandparents, and outward as more of a sphere, if you will, than a straight line. It's more of a sphere, and outwardly from you, you can't always be codependent on your cousin's DNA test, your brother or sister's DNA test, particularly when we have steps and halves and broken families or recreated families, reconstituted families, and we often think that what is said is what is known about our families. We often think what is said is the gospel truth about our ancestry. Well, if grandma said it, if mama said it must be the only information, it must be the only knowledge. And many of us, including myself, are meeting first cousins, second cousins, by third cousins by taking Ancestry.com, by taking 23andMe. So there are many other reasons that the powers that be, if you will, that fuel what conspiracy theorists go after. There are many reasons that they would keep you active in preventing people to stop taking these DNA tests, because there are other avenues of information that we don't always consider, like the outside children, that are being tucked away, that are being hidden, that are being denied. Yeah, you're not going to be able to hide that with the DNA test. My brothers and sisters are showing up in my test. The ones that are taking it, they're showing up. And they have a distinct category for that in Ancestry.com. Other, which includes what we often call the griot, Griot, the writers, the storytellers, the rappers, the hip hop artists, the people who create our limericks, the people who put things into poetic form so that it makes it easier for us to remember, so that it makes it easier for our crystal to program it, so that it makes it easier for us to pass it on along generations. So beyond these courts that I've already mentioned, is the celestial court, composed of a number of their Catholic saints or religious saints, the political court, which indeed includes Simon Bolivar, but also other notable public figures, if you will, within the Venezuelan culture that are seen as powerful, sometimes as having done something profound for the people, like a Malcolm X, like a Marcus Garvey, which I often refer to as egunguns. They don't necessarily have to be in your bloodline, but they stand up for the bloodlines of all bloodlines in America. They stand up for the people, if you will, and so they rise to the occasion. they rise to the rankings of egunguns. So if you're thinking of who to call out when you're acknowledging your ancestors, who to acknowledge when you're acknowledging your ancestors out loud, which is something that we do. We say out loud, we repeat their names. It goes all the way back to Kemet. It goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. The reciting of names, the repeating of names, the creation of imagery keeps these spirits alive. That's why some main religions fear graven imagery, fear the reproduction of imagery, because it contains some essence of the person, some power of the person, good or bad. And so the last court of the Maria Lionza voodoo is the court of the malandros, which are made up of deceased criminals. Now, what I find unique to, and unique is probably not the right word, because we do have some element of criminality in root work, in conjure, in voodoo. I don't always practice in it. I can practice against it. Live listeners don't get it all. So forgive the delayed hesitancy in my conversation. I'm trying to allow my YouTube live listeners to be present and not have them miss a word of the conversation. And area code 305, I'm going to come back to you again. Um, I, I think that's Keisha. I'm going to come back to you again and see if you're ready um, to give your greeting, salutation, or a question or comment. But this court of Malandros, we see it popular to some degree in South America, Central America, Mexico, in direct association with the drug trade. And so there's this harnessing of power, harnessing of spirit to protect them in that endeavor, protect them from the police. So there's a little bit of that Ogu energy there, to protect them from the system of justice, and the spirits that stand up clearly for justice. You know, your Shango and your Obatala, and of course Ilegua, Eshu, Legba, who will administer that justice, who will get you caught up in the trick of your imagination, the trick of your ego, not imagination, the trick of your ego. And so they call on, rely on, have created, because we create Orisha, we create Loa. They have to be birthed. They have to be born. There are those that are birthed with the universe, that are birthed with nature, that are birthed in creation. But then there are those that we create, humans, with our consciousness, with our God consciousness, with our God power, and the ability to create. Just like you can create a fear in your mind that doesn't really exist. Just like you can create a hopefulness for the lottery, and you done already created a shopping list, and you already done made plans, and you done quit your job, because you're just that sure, that your tarot reading, really laid down the law about what this lottery result was going to be, and then it happens, or I should say it don't happen. Those disruptive spirits, um, to another category, to another level of representation. And so we see certain deities, certain characters from culture, from history within the Latin, Hispanic, South American, Central American culture, that you can buy at the Botanica. Often, black people, unless they're erudite and well informed, don't even know who these figures are, or why they're even in the store. Because your stream of audio is not breaking up. Because if it were, Kiana would have told me. But my YouTube live keeps coming and going, keeps coming and going. So I'm not sure what that is. I'm trying everything, including moving the location of my phone. Maybe my phone is too close to the computer itself, and that could be doing it. So I'm gonna try a different angle, a different position, and maybe we can get less buffering. Now I know Keon and my regular listeners are looking at me side-eyed right now because we've been having all kind of technical issues since day one. And some people believe it's conscious. Some people believe, that technology is it can be controlled, so therefore technical glitches can sometimes be created and recreated and controlled. It could be in the algorithm, and the algorithm could be pressing down on certain shows that might not meet popularity from the pop cultural perspective, religious shows, political shows, shows that talk about Donald Trump, pro or con. Those shows are being pressed down by algorithm right now because of the fear of manipulation from outside governments and outside powers in the coming election. So it's all kind of reasoning behind the breaking up of the audio. So I strongly invite you to watch me on YouTube, chat me on YouTube, but put it on mute and call in or put me up on your desktop or your smart TV as my mother does and listen to me there. But you could always put, your 845-277-9143 on speakerphone and then mute yourself and hear the audio consistently without so much frequent breaking up. Also, if you don't already know, I play music 15 minutes coming into the show. So if I'm on time, Block Talk radio lines are open at 1:45. Actually, we can communicate. I can hear you, I can talk to you if you speak to me on the phone lines, and everyone's mic is open between 1:45 and I'm sorry, between 11:45. I have dyslexia among other things. Between 11:45 a.m. Central Standard Time and 12 noon, I play music, or I will talk if I have something to say and communicate with the people who are online. And then the phone lines remain open an hour past 2 o'clock U.S. Central Standard Time. But you must call in, I believe, before 10 or 15 minutes before 2 p.m. in order to remain on the phone lines past 2 o'clock. So, all those people who are on the phone lines with me right now, and there are many, I'm want to call out everybody's area code 323-305, 318, 313, 301, 212, 213. I didn't even know they even use 213 anymore, are all on the phone lines. Just press the number one as 318 has done, and I'll open your mic and bring you into the conversation. Area code 318. I'm assuming you have a question, comment, or request. So I'm coming
Hey,
to you next. Who is that? Did you have something to say, beloved?
no, I was just saying this Hoodoo or Hotel.
What's your area code?
318.
Oh, okay. Because on my desktop, your mic ain't officially open yet. It's still
Mm-hmm.
spinning. Okay. So I'm glad to know that it's actually open. And let me refresh my page because on my desktop you still look muted. Greetings, beloved. Greetings, Alafia. Welcome to another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I appreciate you as a co-host, um, as a supporter, as a listener, as an active participant, because you always have great questions. You often have questions that other people want to ask. So what is your question or comment today, beloved?
Okay. Um, let's say, and I speak a lot for the common people, for the people like millennials and stuff like that. For
You
this
do.
new generation that's coming in.
Yes, you do.
Um, what you saying?
I'm saying yes, you do. You do.
Okay, we have this new thing, right? We have this new thing where people, not new, it's not new, but people have your internet, your social media, your Instagram, and all that. You say one thing wrong to these people, and now, not these people, but a certain individuals on social media, you say one thing wrong to them, you you offend them in any type of way. I see a lot of people threaten each other. I'm going to put a jar on you. I'm going to put, you in a honey jar. I'm going to get some warm water. I'm going to hex you. How do one protect themselves from this internet, troll hexing mentality these new people have in this, movement?
That's a great question. With all due respect and humor, I find it a shady question because I'm about to cut up when I get those kind of questions. Um, and it's something that
I gotta ask.
and it's something that I speak a little bit to every day on the show. So the first thing is it real? Is it even real? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should operate in it or suggest it. So just because they say root worker, hoodoo worker, conjure worker, black witch, whatever, just because that is your username doesn't force me footprint. I'm looking for information. So my first response is, but these people are not even real. It's a veiled threat. It's just bad energy and bad feelings. And so yeah, there are ways to protect ourselves from just bad energy, bad feelings. That's no more different than the evil eye. That's no more different than the sister or brother who sits across the aisle from you at the church or at the temple space who don't really like you, who don't really care for you, who feel some kind of way about your car, who feel some kind of way about what you're wearing, who feel some kind of way about how you dress. So these black witches and wannabe witches and overnight witches ain't real. That's the first thing. The second thing is it shows that gung-ho-ness about people who are either indeed beginning anew, legitimately in a tradition. And I say that with a grain of salt because if you're beginning anew, if you're coming into these traditions legitimately, then you have godparents, you have elders, you have mentors who, give you some instruction. And so you're not immediately jumping out into the public, often with that kind of demonstration, unless you're just rebellious, unless you just ignorant, unless you just, drunk, crazy, because you can't argue with drunk, you can't argue with crazy, and to some degree you can't argue with certain levels of mental health. So, when I see that, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm feeling. Because in an instant, I'm a psychic, I'm an empath, I'm a telepath, I'm an intuitive, I'm a medium. All these different things really represent the degrees in which spirit shows up in you, how it manifests itself. So I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it, I'm feeling it. It's passing through my body. It's passing across my third eye like a movie. When I encounter a post like that. So I'm very careful about the homepage. I don't go on the Facebook homepage. I often don't go on the homepage for Instagram because that's if you're going to get upset about something like what you're talking about, beloved, a hoodoo occultism, it's going to be on the homepage if it's not being directed at you directly. So I try to avoid those arguments. I try to avoid those conflicts. That's another way to protect your energy from that type of stuff. So now let's say you in it. It's that being directed at you, or you already exposed to the post. You caught up in the moment. Smudge, burn your frankincense and myrrh. My computer is surrounded by crystals. I don't separate my computer activity from my spirit work and my spirit realm. One, I don't have a choice because I'm doing readings and there's that medium there where people are coming into my house, into my temple by way of the computer. Two is my business and then my personal business. So I'm often operating in the computer. So I got all kind of crystals to protect me from negative energy, toxic energy, from the computer itself, as well as the third eye energy and the emotive energy that people are and places are able to emit, by way of your computer activity. So I always keep water close at hand when I'm working the computer. I keep Florida water, lavender water close at hand, when I'm working a computer. So I'm often doing that. I'm often holding a stone, quite often Labradorite, one of my more favorite pieces of Labradorite, when I'm working a crystal. When I'm working a computer. I'm drinking and eating healthy, not just sitting, not just stressing my eyes. I'm still being conscious. I'm often reciting mantras, when I'm working and around and at my computer. So there are many ways to protect you from that energy, but I don't trust them. I don't know them. I don't validate their power. To some degree, our acceptance that it might be real is a validation of their fake ass power. Forgive me, mom, myself, to their level to sort of meet at it. Now, if it's a real person, a real scenario, real background, real skills, I would have to look at first your karma. How clean is your karma? How involved are you in this situation, in this scenario? Be sure you haven't taken offense. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think in that magical book, Proverbs, there's a whole series of references back to check me first. It might even be Psalms. Check me first. And I'm using plain English. Check me first. Make sure I'm righteous first. Make sure I haven't offended first. Make sure I'm not operating in ignorance first. Make sure I'm not arrogant enough to think that I'm seeing the entire picture here before I respond, before I act, before I ask you, God, to attack my enemy, to destroy, my oppressor, to bind, the interloper. There's always that element in spirit practice, and particularly in magic, where you have to be clean. In our imagination, in our Hollywood imagery, in our creative imagery of witches, they are often black or green for a reason. The blackness, of course, represents the earth, death, certain levels of decay and breakdown, and that level of process and alchemy is being symbolized. But also what's going on the inside, what has accumulated on the inside, what exists and is coming forth. Their magical book says it's not what goes in that defiles a man, but what comes out that defiles a man. So it's what you say, it's what you project, it's what you emit. So even an ignorant person, even a person with no skills, no knowledge, no training, no initiation, but then claims to project witchcraft at you, then claims to project the curse at you, um, can still do so just by the wickedness of their own evil, just by the wickedness of their own heart. You know what I'm saying? Beloved, give me a second.
I got
Give me a second to answer another call. And I don't want to give life to negativity. So give me a moment. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. All is a blessing. Caller, area code 334. Who's calling and where are you calling from? Yes, caller. Area code 334.
Hi, how are you doing, Steve?
Who's calling and where are you calling from?
My name is Saray, and I'm from what I'm calling from Houston. And this is my first time calling in. I've been following you for a while, but
Since their time now, I can kind of tune in a little closer. And it was right on time because I literally said to someone today that I was like, today I'm about to dive into African spirituality to figure out what's going on in life. Then your live was up, so took that as a sign to lock in. But my question was for someone like me who
Oh my God. I just turned my entire computer off by accident. So, beloved, I can't hear you right now at all. So, I'm going to need you to bear with me until I get things going again. Those of you who are on YouTube Live, for once, you are now the backup. So now my Blog Talk Radio is down. So don't anyone hang up. I'll be back. Just give me 2 minutes to get my computer going again. And I apologize. You know, stuff happens. Uh, it happens as I was repositioning the phone. I wanted to be sure that I didn't disconnect my power to the phone and inadvertently shut off the entire power strip. So my computer is down right now. So give me a moment. Don't hang up. Don't leave me. Stick with me. Let me pull up my chat. See if I can see my chat and see what's being said. My chat is not opening up on my mobile device for some reason, so I'm not being able right now to even see, Kiona, what it's even being said in the chat. Oh my goodness, my chat is not working. So just give me a moment. Things should be up and going again momentarily. Stuff happens, life happens. I count it all a blessing. I count it all, all is a blessing. All is truly and indeed a blessing. And sometimes there's no explanation. Sometimes there's no reasoning in the moment. In the moment. It's not always clear. You can't always see it. You can't always understand it. You say, man, I missed my turn, and you might have missed the accident. You say, man, I missed my train or my bus or my plane. You may have averted the calamity. So I count it all a blessing. I say all is a blessing. Because indeed, we don't always know within that moment in time space. And your moment might be a season, and you're not understanding why. It's not clear. We ask, when people die, why? We ask when negative things happen, why? We have the car accident or the unfortunate violent incident occurs, and we ask ourselves why. Even if we don't say it out loud, we question that moment. We question the moments leading up to it. Could I have made a left? Could I have made a right? Could I have made a detour? So when things happen, when challenges happen, when interruptions happen, I pray that you accept the lesson in what we are experiencing, even in the technology. I know it's irritating. Some of you are just trying to, spend time, entertain yourselves. You're surfing the net, and I'm okay with those people floating in and out, moving forward and back, not standing still with me. But there are those of you who stand with me, and I appreciate that. I feel you holding my hand. I feel your hands on my shoulder. I feel you holding up my back. I feel your back up against my back, and I'm grateful. I'm appreciative, and I'm aware because I'm operating in spirit more of the time than I am in physicality. I need to eat. I need to sleep. I need to do human things, but at the same time, I, as an individual, Divine Prince, spent a great deal of time, all the way back to my childhood, in the spirit realm. I'm more comfortable in the spirit realm. I'm more creative, if you will, in the spirit realm. And I appreciate that opportunity in the spirit realm to literally affect, create, and recreate my reality. My power is back on. Thank you so much for my callers who hung in there. I can see you now. Just give me a moment to get reconnected. My Skype button and my direct connect button through the Blog Talk Radio platform has not rematerialized yet. So give me a moment. I may have to boot up my own Skype and call myself back in. Since it's not automatically showing up on my desktop. So again, bear with me. All is a blessing. And if you want to know the truth about me, the reality about me, you're seeing it. Bump what you heard. You're seeing it. This is how I handle the challenge. This is how I handle battle. This is how I handle the dark. This is how I handle the bad thing, the negative thing, the so-called negative thing, the challenge that shows up as the illusion of a problem or a negative in my life. This is how I handle it. All is a blessing. I sit back first. I try to do what I can, which is what I'm doing now, feverishly clicking buttons and opening tabs and try to get things moving so that I can get the show back, on track again. I breathe. I take the time to breathe. I sit back in the third person and look at myself and look at the events, and of course, in this case, I look at myself. I shut down the show with my toe, with my big left toe, and I shut off the power strip. So we have to look at ourselves. I can't cuss. I can't get.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
Give me a second to do that.
2 digits of your PIN number.
Yes, I know. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. I'm having a moment here with my PIN number.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Oh my goodness. Give me a second, y'all. Give me a second. Give me a second. Oh my. I'm having difficulties talking. Keep it on track with the show. Trying to keep you all here with
Welcome
me.
to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
When I use a direct connect, I don't have to enter my pound key. It's automatic.
To start your show now, press 1. To hear important instructions,
It appears that the host has already dialed into this show. Only one host is allowed per show. Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Here we go, y'all. See, without that, I don't have a mic. And those of you, no one heard me because everything buffered for a minute. I'm trying to get my voice back on the Blog Talk Radio platform. What has not returned is my mic. So I can't hear you. You can't hear me. There's normally a Skype button here present for me to call into. I don't know how to hang up on myself, if you will, on the Blog Talk Radio platform. So let me try something else. Let me see if I can open a history tab and see if that'll bring my mic back. I don't know. Let's see. Technology is what it is, y'all. Let's see if that will allow me to get my Blog Talk Radio mic back. I'm trying to get my mic back
Start
on
your show
Blog Talk
now.
Radio.
Press 1 to hear important.
It appears that the host has already dialed into this show. Only one host is allowed per show.
It's not allowing me to call in. It's suggesting that my mic is already open. When it's not, it closed when the whole computer went down. My mic closed. So I'm having trouble now reopening my Blog Talk Radio mic, Kiona. I lost power. If you didn't hear, everything went down except my phone. So in that, I lost my mic. My big toe accidentally shut the mic off. So I'm struggling now to get my Blog Talk Radio mic together. I've refreshed the page. It won't let me do that. Let me see if it'll let me call a guest. But then if you do that, 4265, I might get an echo, and I don't want that. So let's see. Give me a second. Let's see if I can call myself using the Blog Talk Radio platform, and I'm going to open area code 313. I just need you to say a greetings for me so I can be sure I can hear you. Area code 313, can you
Hi,
say?
hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Kiona, welcome
No
back.
problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll mute you again until you're ready to speak at your own leisure. When you're ready to speak at your own leisure, just press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and that will, virtually raise your hand here on my switchboard, and then I'll unmute your mic. Kiona, thank you so much for staying in there with me. Your mic is open, beloved. Kiona. 323, area code 323, 809.
Okay. I'm here.
Oh, okay, good, good. Thank you so much. And I appreciate all my callers. I appreciate almost all my callers either stayed on the line or hung up and came right back. And I appreciate that. I basically had to call in as a guest on my own show. Okay. My host mic
No.
is completely gone, and I can't get it back. So I'm grateful for the system. I'm grateful for the technology and the ability to do so, and to be able to open you all's mic and still hear you and respond to you, and continue on with the show. And I'm grateful for mobile technology because it buffered a little bit, but the YouTube Live is still rolling. Almost everybody is still with me, and I'm so grateful for that. I just ask you, please, I love your thumbs up. I love your support. I love your following of the show, your subscribing to the show. I really appreciate that. But I also would like you to say something. Speak up. Be heard. This is your opportunity to speak your questions, to speak your thoughts, and considerations about voodoo, about ATR culture, about our culture and how it's showing up in the world, about spirituality, and religion, about the occult, about paganism, about witchcraft, and what that means, or does not mean in the course of voodoo. If you're in the chat, I welcome you to type your questions in all capital letters. Kiona does a really good job of catching your questions, seeing your questions, and throwing that big red question mark up behind your questions so that I can see them and respond to them. Keisha Smith, I'm grateful for you being present, and thank you as well for continuing, for being. In my list of affirmations, one is just to be. The Art of Learning channel, thank you so much for being present. Yes, I am the real deal. Yes, I am challenged. And let me be clear, I was challenged on Blog Talk Radio back before I started bringing this show to the YouTube Live platform. So anytime I speak, anytime I open my mouth online, I'm expecting the challenge. I have all kind of security on my internet, all kind of security on my computer and on my devices because I expect the challenge. Forgive me, Blog Talk Radio. I had to drink some of my juice. I use my juicer. I use my bullet, my Viper, whatever it's called. I use it on a regular basis. I like my green leafy vegetables, my spinach. I like my carrots. I even like green peppers. Oh, I love juiced green peppers. You juice some green peppers and add something sweet and tasty to it. Like apple. You can even add a little packet of sweetener to it if you wish. A tablespoon, not a tablespoon, a teaspoon, of stevia to it. It is so good and it's so good for your body. When I drink my juices, it just goes all through me. And I don't mean that literally. Juicing does not disrupt my elimination process to keep it clean. What I mean is I can feel the vitamins and the minerals and the nutrients just go through my body. My whole body tingles when I drink juices or eat fresh, green, healthy fruits and vegetables. So I appreciate you all. Tanya Chapman, I greet you, beloved. Thank you so much. And anyone else whose name, Julia Rose, thank you so much for returning. Tasha Love, my beloved cousin, my Harris cousin. I got a new Harris on my 23andMe today, Tasha. Just one more Harris that I'm directly or distantly blood related to. I appreciate your questions, your comments, your requests. Let me look at my Blog Talk Radio tab, make sure I haven't missed any fingers. Okay, area code, and I mean the index finger. Area code 313. Now your hand is raised, so I assume your question, comment, or request is forthcoming. Area code
Hi,
313. Yes, beloved. And where are you calling from exactly?
I am from Detroit. Calling from Detroit.
Detroit. And what's your name?
Tanea.
Tanea. Thank you so much, beloved. Tanea. That's how you pronounce it. Tanea. Thank you for being present. What's your question or comment?
So my question requires a bit of background. I am an intuitive person who's been being visited by Orishas and Moa for about 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
It started when I was 20, 21. And I have been looking to study voodoo with the intention of practicing and being initiated. But the problem is, I'm from Detroit. No one here really practices voodoo. If you look for people, you can't find them. It's mostly EFOD practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to know, 2 questions actually. One, since you're more acquainted with these spirits, what instance occurs for these spirits to come to you in the astral realm? That's my first question. And 2, what do I do to begin my studies properly?
If a person has not had Mirage Loa, that's Haitian Creole for marriage to the Loa, then the symbolism that will be presented to you is something completely different. So the same would be for Lukomi, Santeria, Nago, Ifa directly. If you aren't initiated, if you don't have a relationship, it's like imagining a relationship with, the most gorgeous person versus it really being a reality. So the symbolism is going to be different. Often, if you're being communicated by Orisha, it's probably Irumale, which is the ancients or those who created the Orisha, those who came before the Orisha, those that I described early in the show as being birthed from nature itself, birthed from Orun or the heavens themselves. Then most likely what's being communicated with to you are your ancestors and then your Ori. Or since you mentioned Orisha, I'm going to stay in the lane of Yoruba language, Yoruba symbolism, and so now we're looking at Ori, which is your head. Ori is your first Orisha. I don't know how long you've been listening, but I'm a little bit shady, and I talk about the Orisha romance, the Orisha romance, and that is those who consume, as was mentioned earlier in the show, all this information. Hoodoo occultism talked about it, all this information from online, and then they're threatening people with curses and whatnot. Well, another way of looking at that, less innocuous, is a person who's trying to self heal, self repair, self divine, do divination on themselves with no training, no leadership, no real understanding. So often it's the Irumale or the Orisha or your Ori, your head, that's trying to communicate. And for those who don't get it already, the Orisha can't help you without your head. The Orisha can't step in and communicate with you and move for you without Ori. Without your Ori, nothing else can get through. If your head is blocked up, clogged up, cloudy, what's $1 million going to do for you if you're not in your right mind? Iyanla Van Zant had a young lady on her show who hit the lotto, won millions of dollars, bought a plantation, not just a house, a plantation, okay, and then spent a great deal of her money, on this boyfriend who had a auto repair shop, who had no business savvy whatsoever. It was more like a hangout for him and his friends. And then he goes to prison, I think for drugs or something or another. And she's spending $1 million now to bail him and, all this kind of stuff. And he's destined for years in the pen. You might know this story. People who are listening might know this story. So often that symbolism is the Orisha showing up to color the message that the ancestors are presenting. They're showing up as a language. So what colors are going on in the dream? What symbolism is going on in the dream? What items are presenting themselves in the dream is where the language is coming in. It is where the message. And so that's why I strongly, strongly, strongly beat the drum, take notes, journal. Journal. Forgive me, caller. I'm doing this for everybody else. Journal. Take notes.
Indeed.
Write it down. Breathe. Breathe. And take notes. And write it down. That is your greatest asset because often the proof is in the pudding. But if you're not taking notes, if you're not documenting, you don't have no pudding to look at. You don't have any pudding
And
to
I
consider.
do. I've written down everything.
Yeah, you got to, because if indeed they're showing up, albeit Orisha, there's a message that's being presented. They're not showing up, as a sign of you should be crowned by me, or I'm your head, or I'm leading you. They're indeed leading in unison like a choir. So there's a message that's being brought forward, that's being presented. But if a person is uninitiated, it's your ancestors, it's the Irumile, and those that are higher than the ancestors that are using them as symbolism. And particularly if that's what you're exposing yourself to, they're gonna speak through a language that you're familiar with, or the language that you're assumed to be learning and operating in that time. Beloved, give me a second. I'm going to open just one more mic. Everyone who's already
Thank you.
spoken, your mics are already open. You just need to mute yourself so that we don't hear your background noise. Area code 334, I'm coming to you next. And that way, when you want to speak, you can just jump back in, unmute yourself, and respectfully, politely jump back in with your question, comment, or request. 334, I'm coming to you next, so just give me one more. 334, your mic is open, but let me check the chat first before you say something. I see you, Kiona. Thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you so much. Think Bruner. I don't know if that's you on the phone, but I'm going to come to you next, if that's not you on the phone, after I address 334. 334, who is this? Where are you calling from, beloved?
This is Sheree again from Houston. I was the caller that was on my phone when everything went mute.
Go ahead, Sheree.
Okay. Basically, to summarize, my question was, I was just wondering what your advice or suggestions would be for someone who is new to ancestral spirituality to begin to understand what we can be doing right now. Because I feel like there's a lot going on right now, and I feel like a lot of it is a spiritual war. And I want to feel like, I have some type of understanding to go off of, that I am helping lend myself to the solution, even though I'm not this adept, African spiritualist. So I was just wondering, like, what are some things that people like me who are new, but who have an understanding and awareness of things, but not in any tradition or any practice, how can we still participate in lending our positive forces to this spiritual going on right
Now, I don't want to assume or make any assumptions, so I'm going to ask the questions. You mean with a mentor or without?
I mean, I have absolutely no clue, and you can tell me if
Okay.
it needs to be with or without a mentor.
Okay.
Like, I'm just like, my reason for asking this is just that I woke up with this just like pressing feeling like I need to understand what I'm doing in the spirit, and so I'm just looking for advice in that area.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate the spirit and the nature in which you presented your question. And so, yeah, it's safe for me to say, not assume, particularly for a person who does not have leadership or who may be what we call just beginning, because that's an illusion. The reality is you started beginning when you came out mama's womb. We already been on the journey. So that idea that I'm a beginner, I'm just beginning is a little bit of an illusion. But
Okay.
as simple and as sort of taboo and as corny as my first answers are going to be, you have to take notes, you have to journal, but more importantly, you also have to do some study and some research. I often describe it as going to college, going to university. It's that intense. If you're serious, it's that intense. If you care, it's that important. If you really want to know, so you will be up at night. You will be up in the middle of the day. You will be napping in the middle of the day, and you will be studying in the middle of the night. And particularly right now, if you're going through this, what I'm safely going to call self-initiation process, right now by yourself or in isolation or in physical separation, then I get it. So this is the time to read, 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 study everything. If you privy to your DNA results, if you've gone through ancestral work and divination with me or with someone similar to me, and you have more specifics about ethnicity, then do that. You'll be surprised the level of information you'll get through a Google search when you use a specific ethnic name, as opposed to generalities like Ifa, Voodoo, African religions. When you start using specific ethnic names, a Google list of African ethnicities in a particular country, because there's a whole lot of them. Nigeria has 200 ethnicities just within the confines of their borders. So get specific, even if you don't have a direct connection to that lineage. You just study it. I study a different ethnic group every day. I have a particular museum site that I pull up, and I'm not going to share it because I don't want it overrun. And I choose from their list of ethnicities, one ethnic group or two, depending on my schedule every day. And then I research it, their gods, their spirituality, their religion, their culture. And so do that. It feeds the mind, beloved Sheree. It feeds the spirit. Um, it moves your third eye forward. It is an extension of using your imagination. I talked about imagination as being one of the closest uh, senses or human characteristics that the goddess gave us for tapping into our spirit body, and that is our imagination. Sometimes you have to use your imagination. You have to imagine what heaven is. You have to imagine what being a different person, a better life is, in order to then bring it into the actuality of physicality. It first has to show up in what I call the mist, MIST. So reading and studying and Googling stuff and looking at videos feeds the mind. Virtually visit museums, go through encyclopedias, absorb that culture because we're so removed from indigenous culture. We're so removed from third world, so-called third world culture, even though we have third world-like conditions right here in the U.S. At the mental level, at the Ori level, we're so far removed from understanding what my family in the middle of Mississippi Delta, some don't have plumbing, okay? They got electricity, but some of them don't have plumbing. So some of them don't have internet. You know, they have to have satellite. And who can afford to buy their own satellite and then connect to, a satellite service? Because sometimes in these areas, they don't have, Cox and Comcast out in the rural areas of Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. We really underestimate our modernization in America, our separation as we try to imagine ourselves to be from real third world, indigenous world like conditions. So I like to say, coming into ATR, you have to have a renewed mind. You have to. You have to be born again. You have to relearn how to think from a more indigenous world perspective. We often talk about sacrifice, and people question sacrifice and animals. And really, you're now forcing yourself to think from a more third world perspective. Not just the ritual, spiritual, religious ramifications of it, but the third world ramifications of it, where they kill a chicken every day. If they're going to eat, they kill a goat every day or once a week if they're going to eat. And that meat is shared, that meat is respected, that meat is not wasted. It's not just, murder. It's not just killing for the sake of killing. I know to the vegan, it's murder, period, end of story. But I'm talking to the rest of humanity who is more in the middle on adequately and appropriately utilizing what's available to us in nature for not just health, body, and strength and manufacturing and commercialism, but for spirit and religion. There's a certain arrogance that stands up, and I'm still talking to you, Sheree, that stands up in our families about what we believe and what we do, and even your girlfriends, your friends, your male friends might see a change in your behavior or a change in your hair or a change in your dress, and then they start questioning what they believe because of what they see you doing. They want to know, well, what is that? What does that mean? How does that help you? Because they want to know, well, do I need that? Should I be doing that? Should I be sporting that? And hoodoo occultism, that's at that real basic level of coming into these traditions. Because he asked earlier about being brand new and showing up in these social media sites and wanting to look like Oshun, wanting to look like Voodoo, wanting to look like Papa Legba. Uh, and then when you open your mouth, which is what we do in social media, or start typing or start posting them memes, we really project what we know. We really project where we are. So read, beloved, read, write, take notes, drink plenty of water. I'm not being mama like, papa like. I'm talking magic right now. You have to drink water. You have to get nutrients to be operating any level in spirituality and tradition, but more importantly, as a practitioner, learning voodoo, wanting to stand up in that. So drink water, eat healthy, clean food, get plenty of sleep, and enough so that you aren't falling asleep while you're trying to meditate, while you're trying to focus energy through your meditations. Expose yourself to religions, world religions. I've studied world religions. I've studied the globe in terms of religion, and not just modern, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Not that that's a bad place to start. That's a great place to start if that's what you've been exposed to. That's a great place to start if that's what you've already had imprinted on you. Studying the Bible opened me up to voodoo. Studying the Bible helped me to understand the reality of witches. Studying the Bible helped me to understand the reality of demons and jinn. So it led me to voodoo. It led me to Kemet, to studying ancient Egypt in earnest, their spirituality, their religion, their language, and then that led me to voodoo. That led me back to voodoo. By going back into me, I ended up back at voodoo. By studying me, I ended up at voodoo. So study yourself, know yourself, make sense of yourself. For years, I was obsessed with the whirling dervishes and Sufi music, and my DNA says, okay, you got a footprint in the Middle East. My DNA says you have a footprint in Egypt. We like to romanticize Egypt, but I'm one of the people who actually has DNA that connects me back to one of the pharaohs in Egypt. So study yourself, beloved. Study yourself. Find out who you are. Find out what you like and why you like it, why you don't like it. And it's that shadow work that one of my callers, I'm not sure, is it Kiona? I'm not sure who it is that likes to talk about shadow work a lot. That's where your shadow work come in. Your dark side, the parts of yourself that you don't see with clarity, because we don't see shadows with clarity. They're not transparent, so you're not seeing yourself in transparency. That's where shadow work comes in. That's where shadow work comes in. The unknown, that's still a mystery even to yourself. We don't see ourselves honestly the way others see us. We don't see ourselves honestly the way the ancestors see us, the way God or the goddess sees us. We don't see ourselves often honestly the way we see ourselves. Some of you are self-deprecating and pick at yourself and complain about yourself and say, "Oh, this, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny. This don't make me look good. This ain't cute about me." And it might not be true at all. It might be absolutely nothing wrong with your style, your dress, your swag, your face, your elements. But we will convince ourselves that it is, particularly if we have been convinced educators and the like. So drink plenty of water, Sheree. Make sure you're exercising, even right now in this time of being sedimentary. Exercise. Be conscious of that even more, and that doesn't require going to the gym. Yoga, stretching, meditative exercises. Walk the block, run the block. I don't know how much yard you might have, how much land you might have, but utilize it. Take advantage of it right now. All of that feeds the spirit. All of that feeds becoming a practitioner. All of that feeds making sense of why the Orisha and the Loa are standing up for me, are talking to me. They may be talking to you because you can't hear your Eve. They may be talking to you because you can't hear your Igbo. They may be talking to you because you can't hear your Hausa. You understand to some degree the language of Orisha, whether you've been initiated or whether you've been exposed to it on the internet. But you might not be as exposed to some of the ethnicities that stand up in you. So the ancestor that you can hear, that you can see, is what's going to stand up in your dream. It's what's going to stand up in your divination. It's what's going to speak from your table. Not every dead is going to speak, Not every person who dies is going to have conversation for you. Some of your family members are going to die and go on to heaven and move on to the next level, and they ain't got no conversation for you. They're not worried about earth. They're not worried about what's happening down here. And it's not that they don't care. It's not that they can't send healing. It's not that they can't send love. It's not that they can't send protection. They're not vibrating in that frequency to be helpers, to be eguns and egunguns, if you will, to assist us in our daily encounters. And then there are others who have unfinished work, and so it's a part of their abo. It's a part of their obligation. It's a part of their sacrifice, even as they move forward to fix, repair, and change what's happening back here. So, beloved, Sheree, pay attention to your ancestors. And you might say, well, again, I ain't been initiated or I haven't had no instruction about that. All they require is space. All they require is a closet or a table, or a corner with a table in it where you acknowledge just the dead. And it's not necromancy. It's not, raising the dead. you know, it's not revenant, revenant or revenant, REV, like Victor, ENANT. Revenant is a word from old folklore. It is about animated corpse that are believed to have been revived from the dead to haunt the living. The word revenant or revenant is derived from an old French word, revenant, the returning. Revenants are part of the legend of various cultures, including Old Irish, Old Celtic, Old Nordic mythology. So when we look at Egyptian culture, South American culture, African culture, we don't quite see, though it is present. When we talk about zombies, you're talking about revenant. Those are revived dead. Often they show up that way. We dress them that way. Even Baron Samedi in his most organic form, it has corpse wrappings, has cotton in his ears and his nose, as is often done in embalming and in burial process. So the idea of acknowledging every dead, it's not the same thing as acknowledging ancestors. It's not the same thing as acknowledging evolved egungun. The dead need to be allowed their rest, need to be allowed their opportunity to transition, need to be allowed their opportunity to have the spirit realm and the gods and the ancestors greet them, meet them, repair them, and then send them to the next destination. But then there are the dead. Egun means dead. Egungun is the ascended dead, the elevated dead. Uh, um, they're vibrating at a higher frequency, and so they have a chore, a job, a vocation, if you will, to help and assist the living and life in some way on this platform. So acknowledge your ancestors, particularly those that want to help. And you might not know who they are, Sheree. So I say, I call on, I invite the intercession, the interference of the ancestors who would do that for my good, who would do that which is in my best interest. Those who are desperately standing behind you to push you forward, I invite them in. I invite their interference in my endeavor. So make sure you're including in all things your ancestors. But a healthy study of world religions, world culture, spirituality, numerology, serious numerology, astrology, not horoscope, astrology. Get down to the brass tacks. Be willing to do that work, and I guarantee evolution, increased vibration, and of course, crystals to elevate, to amplify what you're doing, to help retain what you're doing, to help get clarity from your guides about what you should be reading, what you should be studying, And then find a mentor. Find a mentor. Find someone you can trust, someone who's mature, maybe someone who's at least, 35 or older, maybe. But even at 35, who's serious. In many African cultures, particularly East African cultures like the Maasai, you don't consider an adult until 35. We do it here in the West at 16, at 21, at 18. But often in indigenous cultures, you're not an adult until you're 35. They don't think you have enough life experience until you're 35 to operate as a mature mentor, leader, godparent, and particularly in spiritual traditions. And that's why we often see the imagery, the symbolism of the old hag, the old man, the old woman who lives at the end of the road that all the kids are terrified of and scared of. That is how those cultural symbolisms made their way into spirituality and religion, into our minds and our memories. We see them as the sage who isolates themselves, who fast not just from food but from life, who fast from people. I know my sister Wapani, and she probably would not care if I said it live on air. Her goal is to withdraw from humanity. Is to live out in the middle of nowhere, and right now they live out in the middle of nowhere, but have access to her own food, her own herbs, her own fruit, her own vegetables, her own clean water, her own resources. And so many people, have dreams of home, and not just dreams of Africa home or China home, or India home, or the indigenous lands, but a dream of a home that's on earth but untainted by the ills, of humanity. So be pure, Sheree. Be honest, with yourself as you grow spiritually, as you receive this information. Um, don't agree with it all, but don't be too overcritical of it all either. Stand in the middle. Stand in the middle. Hold on to that information because sometimes it don't make sense until you read another book. I know trying to make sense of Ephi divination took something like, y'all often ask me about books. It took me something like 20 books, an equal number of years, and 4 mentors. The most recent one, may he rest in a room, Awo Fasakin, Babalawo Ifasakin, out of Georgia, for me to really make sense of Ephi divination. It's confusing by design. It's confusing by order. When we think we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, first of all, West Africans don't count quite like that in a linear fashion, and the Odus are not designed to be counted in a linear fashion. So we are here 1, 2, 3 to the Odu, but they're actually in a completely different order. And then that order is reflective of your lineage. So certain lineages have a particular order. Certain ethnic groups have a particular order that shows up. Agbi is Alpha and Omega. Agbi is Alpha and Omega, but many of you view Agbi as the number 8. And Alpha and the number 8 in divine numerology is infinity. The number 8 is infinity. Whether things are consistent, persistent, blocked, stagnant, or don't change on the number 8 in a tarot card reading, it's about the number 8 in divine numerology representing infinity. You turn that Arabic numeral, because all our numbers are Arabic numerals, on its side, and your number 8 represents a continuum, represents infinity, represents something that has some sort of lasting. Now, it might be seasonal, it might shift, it might change, it might come on a particular rotation, a particular cycle, but the number 8 is about infinite opportunities, infinite powers, infinite energy, and our ability to access that, to utilize that to the best of my ability. Let me look at my YouTube chat. Am I missing my questions? Greeting Wapani. Thank you so much for bleaching your hands and coming up out of that garden dirt and coming on into the room because I know you're gardening today. Oh, and you heard me. You heard me discussing self sustainability. I told you she wouldn't care if I said it live on the chat. Kiona, help me out. Where's the question? Or are we talking about my sister's response? Divine self healing. Greetings, beloved.
I think Bruno was the first one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Give me a second. I had to scroll up. Think Bruner, beloved. Greetings, greetings. For some reason,
How do you create and maintain?
Yes. How do you maintain? I was going to say, when you're on the phone, I tend to remember your first name. When you show up in the chat as Think Bruna, I say Think Bruna because I can't remember your name then for some reason. And it's okay. I'm sure you're using Think Bruna to protect your anonymity, and I appreciate that. Her question is, how do you create and maintain sacred space? What herbs and burnt offerings do I use? Again, it's simple. Keep it simple. It's called the KISS theory, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. It's what they say in the 12-step rooms. But it can be complex. It can be as complex as you are. So, first of all, sacred space has to be in the mind, has to be in the body, has to be in the spirit. You can't be full of bullshit and expect bullshit to come out. I recited the magical book, one of the magical books earlier, the Bible, for those of you who don't get it. Because it's a magic book to me. It's got spells and all kind of stuff in it. It suggests that it's not what goes into a man, it's not what goes into a woman that defiles her. Listen to me carefully. It's not what goes into a woman that defiles her, it's what comes out. It's what comes out. So, at first, in order to maintain sacred space, you got to do it in your ori. You got to do it in lave te, in your head. Lave means to cleanse. You got to cleanse your head, inward and outward. How do you cleanse your head and ultimately all your 7 chakras inwardly? You do that in the spirit. You do that with your spirit work, your spirituality and religion path and walk. But you also do that by what you eat, what you drink, how much fresh air you're getting, how much air you're getting, period. Many people don't breathe deeply. Many of you talk, get excited, get into your moods, and you shorten your breaths, and you're not breathing. I appreciate the blessing of Corona in this moment because it also gives us an opportunity to think about breath, to think about breathing, to think about congestion in a whole new way, to think about how that blocks us up physically, but also spiritually and emotionally. How just a little bit of congestion adds to it decreases, it adds to the blockage of air that you're able to absorb at any amount of time. And breathing absolutely affects your thoughts, your meditation, how you operate, how you live. Musicians understand this because we have to learn to breathe. I had to learn to breathe to play the saxophone. I had to learn to breathe to sing. And of course, athletes learn about breathing. So, beloved, you also want to just breathe. Just now that you have the time, just sit at the window or sit on the porch or sit on the stoop and look at the sky, look at the trees, look at the animals, and just breathe. And allow spirit to guide you. Spirit can guide you. God can guide you. The ancestors can guide you on your journey. Don't call it self-initiation, but they can guide you, teach you. They tell you what elders you should speak to, what leaders you should make some kind of connection to. And it's not always about a commitment. If you're in a journey of research, if you're in a journey of gaining information. So that's one. But then there is your physical space. what herbs are available to you, what herbs are you using. I know often off the top of my head, it's easy to recount frankincense and myrrh. It's easy to recount sage. It's common and it's quite frankly overused to some degree. But yes, there are many other herbs and plants and roots that I absolutely burn. Many of the herbs that I grow and harvest from my yard can also be burned and applied in that application. So do some research, do some study, find out what's available to you, find out what you might need along your journey, um, and then acquire that, seek that out. Again, if you need some help, you can always send me an email at DivinePrince at houseofthedivineprince.com. DivinePrince at houseofthedivineprince.com. And I can help you get a little bit more specific. I also, another common thing that I burn, but I don't often say it loud on air, is at your botanica, sacred palo or holy palo. And it's often listed in Spanish. So you want to look for that. Cedar, sage, sweetgrass. Sweetgrass is something you can grow or harvest and burn. Of course, frankincense and myrrh, rose petals I burn. I'm able to access a lot of that in the nature, in the wild, in New Orleans, abandoned properties. Rose can be found almost everywhere in the South if you know where to look. Lavender is something many of us grow. Um, Rosemary is something many of us grow. My rosemary is just prolific. Oh my God, it's like a monster in terms of its shape and its size relative to the pot that I have it in. Juniper is something else that we can burn to smudge, to cleanse, to purify, um, to invoke action, reaction from spirit, to block certain actions and reactions in our environment. Burning certain product will keep certain people away from your house. I know some people who can't stand the smell of frankincense and myrrh no matter what. No matter what. Um, and I know those people well, and I know their life, and I know what they do and how they live. And so I get it. I know why they can't handle the frankincense and myrrh. And particularly someone who's Catholic, goes to the Catholic Church, it's exposed to the frankincense and myrrh on a regular basis, but just can't stand it anywhere near my block. And I say my block because people can smell my incense often a block, 2 blocks away. I'm sort of known for my smell, no pun intended. I'm sort of known for what I smell like, what my house smells like, and the smells that emit from my residence. If I need to speak more to that, think Bruner, I will. Be specific in the chat, and I'm definitely going to come back. Area code 334, that's the Art of Learning channel. Thank you so much, beloved. Your hand is already raised. All you have to do is unmute your mic if you have a question or comment, and just come
You
on
are
up.
you. I was thinking about in its entirety. So thank you so much for that.
Thank
And you
you.
basically affirmed the path I've been on because then you were saying it's like, I'm just going in that direction. So
Yeah.
so thank you, and I'm glad for this opportunity to be able to connect with you more.
Stay with me. Just mute your mic, mute your phone, but please stay with me. Stay with me. A Felice
Will do.
Akushua. Oh, Felice, I love you, beloved. I used to advertise for Felice Akushua from my main website. And then some development happened, and I lost all my advertisement information, and I've never resubmitted it back into my website. But she's in our chat, beloved. I like your icon, and it's an icon that I use a lot, by the way, in my more social media. Greetings, Felice. Akushiwa. She's asking, where does crystal healing originate in our ancestry? I'm going to say back at the beginnings of time. If we believe that indigenous man, I almost feel a little uncomfortable saying Stone Age man, um, predating iron, predating metallurgy, what would have been available to them? Hunter gatherers. What would have been available to them is what would have been available in nature. I understand before the greed and materialism and capitalism of humanity, gemstones, rocks would have been everywhere, would have littered the ground in certain regions of the world, in certain deserts, in certain dry areas, in certain wet areas, in certain mountainous areas, in the riverbeds. Minerals and gems would have been everywhere. And so the idea that, we're going to fetch water, and I finding something, that's common. That's common today for me because I know where to look, and I often take the time to look. I find jewelry, I find gold, I found diamonds, in a modern context, but I've also found them in a more natural context, just exploring the arena. One of the things that I did as a child was dig in the yard. Now I didn't make a mess. I didn't get my ass beat, for digging up the yard. But I was allowed to dig in the yard a little bit, in a certain area. I gardened even as a child, as a teenager in elementary school and coming up. So crystals come in back at the creation of time. Now we talk about written history, Egypt, ancient Egypt, the time of the people who were writing, Plato and the Greeks and the Arabs. There are many Arab stories that we overlook and don't investigate, that speak of wealth, gems, gemstones, cursed gemstones, blessed gemstones. India would have stories that almost predate what we call predate history or written history that involve supernatural powers, gemstones, and the usage thereof. So I would say it's always been present since written history, since organized societies have existed. I credit the Egyptians because it's closest to our time. It's the most accessible in terms of information to us. And even as a child, as an adolescent, that's sort of how I got moving on my spirit walk. And it was with the question of why are they burying people with, what we would perceive as millions and billions and trillions of dollars of wealth. Even if we look at the pyramid itself and just the stone blocks, there's value in just the stone blocks. And often those monuments were destroyed or recycled so that they could create new buildings, new temples, new spaces. And we know that there's great crystal quartz content in those stone blocks that hold together even the pyramids of Egypt. So crystal, mineral, stone goes back to the beginning, beloved. Even in the new world, what we call the so-called new world, that belonged to the indigenous people that were here before we discovered it. Um, we know of seeing crystals and dream stones that give humanity the ability to see, to receive information, to store information for others to capture and recapture at a later time. So it goes back to the beginnings of time. Whoever first talked about Lemuria, Atlanta, Atlantis, I think that was Plato, who originally started talking about it in his writing, started referencing time periods that had not commonly been put into bookwork. So it goes back a great deal. It's found in indigenous cultures. It's found in China, in the power and the magic within jade, and many other jade-like minerals that are sold today as jade, like nephrite, for instance, another green mineral that mimics jade in many ways. Sometimes when you think you're buying jade, you're actually buying nephrite, because we've assumed a certain color, a certain transparency, a certain uses for jade. And so, as always, retailers and commercialism have tapped into that. So often, what you think you're buying is jade. It's not real jade. My piece, that donut that I wear on my neck, is real jade. The hardness, the transparency, the age of the stone, real jade. But I have a fishtail, Mayat, Mami Wata, not Mayat, Mami Wata, Yemaya, mermaid fishtail that's quote unquote jade, but it's nephrite. So I'm answering many different people's questions at the same time randomly. I know. So the beloved who was talking about clearing space, that's Think Bruner. Beloved who was talking about starting on the spirit path, I'm also speaking to you. Learn your minerals, learn your stones, just like we do that for our body. Are you getting enough vitamin D, enough vitamin E, enough vitamin A, etc.? Are you eating a balanced diet? So look into stones, crystals, minerals in a serious way, not just the feel good new agey books, but the geology books, the rock books that look at them from a scientific perspective, so you know the science and the math and the numerology, because that's what the numerology is in the science books that talk about rocks, the geology books that discuss rock. That's why I favor Dave's Rock Shop in Chicago. Dave's Rock Shop on the north side of Chicago. I can't remember the street. Keona or somebody might Google it real quick, on the north side of Chicago in Evanston. They are geologists. They are archaeologists. They have a dinosaur museum in their basement. And so they are not overpricing their stones. They don't have a new agey, trendy, faddish approach to what's being sold out of their shop. So I trust them. I shop with them for years. Some of my best pieces come out of Dave's Rock Shop. Let's see. Felice Akushiwa, I hope I addressed that appropriately. If not, hit me back in the chat or get on the phones with me. Oh no, it's too late to get on the phones. Only the people who are already on the phones can speak to me on the phones. So if you're on the phones and you're have never spoken, you need to raise your hand so I can unmute your mic. If you have spoken, your mic is already muted. All you have to do is unmute yourself at any point that you need to ask a new question or jump in. My sister Wapani, I greet you in love and light, my ninja. And I appreciate you drinking that kale, mango, kiwi, and various berries. That sounds tasty. I forgot to say I put palm in my juice because I like berries: pomegranate, blackberry, grape. As long as it's dark purple, black, I love it. I'm here, Blog Talk Radio. I had to take a sip. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you all for your suggestions. Okay, Wapani, because of the nonsense that we've endured, you don't feel entirely connected to the ancestors. She didn't say entirely. She said she don't feel connected to the ancestors. I say entirely because there's no way to be separated from your ancestors, even if you're not conscious of it, even if you're not cognizant of it, because they exist in your blood. So, Wapani, they're in everything. They're in your likes and your dislikes, even in your not feeling connected. Your ancestors are there. Your ancestors know why you don't feel connected. They know why you're not connected. They know what was done to you. They know what happened to you. They know what happened before you. Because sometimes when we are put in that position of being victimized, our focus is just that, ourself, the victimization, and the oppressor, the person who committed the crime, the person who committed the act. And it's hard for us to think about that person's parents, grandparents, that person's environment, because we're in a struggle not to show empathy or connection to the oppressor. And I get that. That's often a safe position to have. But when you're taking a healing position, you have to be more selfish in your thought process. So it's selfish in a healthy way, in a self-care way. It's selfish for you to think about not the oppressor, not the abuser, but the abuser's parents, grandparents, lifestyle, the environment that they were quite possibly exposed to. Now, in some cases, that information ain't available, and people don't have a clue. In our case, to some degree, one Wapani, and forgive me for being personal, we have some of that information. We know about the aggressiveness and the brutality of our Broomfield grandparents. We know that that was felt and affected across generations till this day. The Harris eyebrows, the Harris attitude. Um, Tasha, you in the chat. It's legendary, and it crosses time and space. It crosses generations. So there's no, it's sort of what's implied in how you worded your question. There's no way to not be connected to your ancestors, but what we're striving for is a greater degree of connection. Don't focus on, don't focus on the negative ones. Don't focus on the bad ones. Don't focus on the ones that violated. Don't focus on the ones that you feel are responsible for the violation unless you're doing healing work. One version of the healing work is, use your imagination. You sit in a chair, you put an empty chair in front of you, and you work out your issues in the spirit realm with the person that you had the blocks to. But in your general connection with ancestors, you are calling down, you are connecting with those who would do good, those who would fix and repair, those who would offer sympathy, empathy, comfort to us in our time of need. We're not calling on the Egun, which means the dead in a more general sense, and particularly those dead who we already know we have a problem with. I'm not suggesting you put the abuser's picture on your shrine, the abuser's obituary on your shrine. Um, but your grandparents, your great grandparents, your other dead family members, the ones that you can get attached to, the ones you can get a hold of in a physical sense, obituary or something that they owned. And even the ancestors that you don't have a personal direct relationship with. We didn't have much of a relationship with Madia. Okay, but she's on my shrine. I know she has some negative energy about her. I know it was projected at us on the occasion, but I have her there to address him and to handle him and to handle the darkness that comes through the abuser. And so that's why I have her there. I have our great grandparents on the Broomfield side there. It has been said that some of the abusive nature stems from there, originates from there. And we know very little about them. We know that they possessed land in a time when our people didn't possess land. We know that they were one generation removed from Poisson Blanc. So we know that their skin color may have also played a role in how they lived, how they moved about in society, how they had land and were able to hold on to their land to some degree. But have not found a record of slaves before them or after. So we can only imagine a man and a woman with no less than 10 kids trying to handle acres of land in a racist, white supremacist, sexist, abusive, land burning, land stealing, lynching environment. And so that can make a person bitter. That can make a person edgy. That can make a person negative. So it's in a slow way meditative way that you come at your ancestors, and you come at your ancestors in the zone of safety first. And then you apply more stringent skills and techniques to address those harder issues that ultimately will come up at some point in your spirit walk, in your meditation. Um, Create a space, as I said early in the show, Apani. If you haven't done so already, acknowledge acknowledge those that come before with smoke, with smudging, with libation. Did you catch that? With tobacco. Many of our ancestors asked for that, required that. It's also seen as a prayer. Smoke is also seen as a libation. And sit with those that would be helpful to you. And if you don't know their name, then you say that. I invoke the ancestors that are here to assist me. I invite in the ancestors that are here for my own good, in my best interest. We don't disturb those who can't help us. We don't disturb those who are still themselves in a state of need, in a state of needing help. Wapani, come back at me if I need to say more. If you haven't gone back out into the yard, but that's that. Yes, think Bruno. That's that shadow work. Wapani, you still got shadow work to do, and I say that in love. I hope I'm not giving you the sense of you being called out on air. We all do. We all have ancestral connections that have negative attached to them. It's the human condition. For some of us, it's just closer to us than others, generationally. Because if you've been hurt, abused by your siblings, by your parents, by your grandparents, by your guardians, it shows up as closer to you, by your spouse, by your lover. It affects us deeper and shows up closer. So I get that, but there's no way to do any kind of ancestral work without some point coming to the crossroads, without some point accessing feelings, without accessing feelings that that gonna conjure up negative attachments. So in the safety of your ancestor room, in the safety of your prayer room, in the safety of your closet, in the safety of your shrine space, is where you work out your shadow and you deal with those shadow spirits and that shadow energy. It's one of the reasons we light candles. It's one of the reasons we burn oil lamps. It's one of the reasons that we bring some illumination, whether it's day or night, whether in a dark room or a lit room. We add that ritual act of illumination to give them light, to give light in the spirit realm, so that only light, only positive is being drawn to us. In the darkness of sacred space, because whether it's literal darkness and you in a room with candles burning, or in the closed eye space where initially there's darkness, then comes illumination, and we then begin to see. We also burn candles, Wapani, on our ancestral shrines to keep certain ancestral egunguns and elder spirits alive with us, not to wake up or keep alive anything or anyone that would pass down the negative. So how I deal with the living oppressor, how I deal with the living abuser, is through the ancestral realm. They can reach them quicker than you can, closer than you can, sooner than you can, with a greater degree of stealth and calculation. I deal with them in my ancestral space. If you want to respond to that, come back at me. Type your questions in all chat so that I can see it clearly. Yes. Yes, divine self-healing. You can clean Egun You can smudge egun, and indeed there are eguns that, with an S, eguns. When we say egun without an S, we're talking about the deity of the dead, like Papa Gede or Baron Samedi. But the egun, yes, Catholics have the same concept. I think it's called purgatory. And so your soul is like in limbo, and so it can be blessed, it can be cleansed. The Mormons baptize dead people, and if you didn't know, the Mormons baptize everybody. If you got a social security number, the Mormons got your name, your birth date, and they're going to baptize you, even in death, to ensure the protection of your soul. That's one of the things the Mormons do. That's why when you're studying ancestry, lineage through these websites, and you're trying to connect the dots with your family, the Mormons is one of the people that we go to because they have the most extensive archive of people and names and birth dates and families in the U.S. I hope that's not alarming, but and shocking to you, but that's a truth. But yeah, we can cleanse, we can smudge them, but they still need time to sort of do their work. Oh, I know what I was going to say. But they could still bring forward something good. They can still bring forward a message, a clue. And sometimes in dark areas, if we're talking about murder, abuse, rape, child abuse, theft, sometimes I'll safely say our dirty relatives can come through in ancestral work to provide protection, defense, retribution, all that sort of thing. So my godmothers and godfathers, my ancestors told me, baby, your first line of defense is your ancestors. That's your first line of defense. Um, okay, let me see. I'm trying to pull out all my capitalized stuff here. It's a lot going on. Keisha Smith, what's the name of which books? I'm not sure which books I said or I referenced. Um,
You did. Wapani had recommended a book
oh, okay.
of water and in the spirit, and so she just clarified. And Wapani left the chat a little while ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I see it now.
Okay.
Okay. Um, okay, I see it. So I guess I am on point with the questions. I guess I'm not missing anything or anybody. Yeah, she's going
Well,
back.
you've addressed everything.
Yeah, she's going back to the garden. I mean, this is the time of year. Don't let the events of the day throw us off in terms of the calendar. And I know it's easy to do because I keep checking my calendar every day, whether it's the moon, the weather, the deities. I'm checking my calendar every day, several times a day, because it feels like you're on vacation, almost like you on time off, and then you go back to work and everything is a little wonky until you get back into your rhythm. We're having to find and create a new rhythm right now. That is the spirit of the day. That is the spirit of the time. That's why we're doing this time out, to realign our rhythm, to realign our pace, to realign our harmony, to realign our vibrations. I appreciate your questions, your comments, your requests. Please jump in the chat with your capitalized questions. If you can't capitalize, use correct punctuation so that I can see and dissect it. Kiona will help me to dissect it. Otherwise, I'm going to move forward momentarily. I love you and I appreciate you and your support and your attention, and you're always showing up in this sacred space.
I want to ask something before you go, because I appreciate, this is Kiana, I appreciate you for your service, because you've been going, and I know it's time for you to drink and everything. But when you were speaking on the Ancestry reports and how yours had updated via email, and you were speaking on Maria Lionza, I was looking up, and there were different versions of what happened to her and how she became a goddess. And one of the ones that stood out to me was that she was thrown into a lake as a sacrifice for an anaconda spirit, and she emerged as a goddess. And so when I read that, the first question that came to me was, who are you? Who hurt you? What happened? And so I was thinking, and I noticed and I'm not trying to come from Spookville, but from my own experience, anytime that I've ever got involved with premarital sex, I always felt like some type of void. I felt like a sense of death. I felt a sense of hurt. And I could be bold enough to say that goes all the way back to the womb. It almost feels as if like my blood remembers certain conversations of rejection or certain conversations of want. I mean, like from the womb. And is it possible that through having sex with casually and not really being in a commitment with someone, that it could really drudge up something like that, or am I thinking I'm on the wrong track?
Yes. Yeah. If you watching me on camera, I'm shaking my head yes and absolutely. You hit on two things. You took it back to the womb for me. You took it back to the first projection, the first rejection, the first being thrust out or being thrust in, depending on where your mind is in this analogy. You're now being thrust into the new world, is what I'm trying to say. You're now coming out of a room, coming out of a better place. Your memories have been stripped from you as an infant, and now you're being forced through the birth canal into the new world, in a new realm, to have to remember who you are all over again from fresh. So that's the first abuse. When the doctor has to snatch you out of there because you breach or you ain't in the right position. When they cut that umbilical cord. When they snip the penis, in the circumcision. That's the first abuse. That's the first most tragic event that we come in this world with. And we cry, and we scream, and we holler. And if you don't, they smack you on the ass to be sure, the blood's flowing and the mucus is out of your lungs and you operating now in this real world. It's the first lesson that life don't always feel good. Lessons ain't always cute. Lessons ain't always cuddly. And I might have to slap you on your ass to make sure your blood is flowing, and you're attentive and your senses are doing what they're supposed to do to make sure you open your mouth. Do you want to live? The doctor might be saying. Open your mouth. We create and recreate our reality with our mouth. And so the child screams, the child hollers, the child relents to now coming into life. We look at that as a blessed moment, as a blessed occasion. But when we break it down to what it really is, and the women under the sound of my voice, you get it because you feeling it. You doing the epidural. You enduring all the other signs and warnings and cautions and fears that come along with that moment. No matter how clean, the birth is. I've heard of the clean birth. I had my child at home. I know a Nigerian woman, Chinwe, back in California. She had all her children at home with no help, with no man, and by herself. And for her, it was, I sat in, the bathtub or the little pool of water, and then I squatted and pushed it out, and, she said it wasn't no pain. I don't believe her. But she said it wasn't no pain. So we don't think often about it, and then we don't think about it from the baby's perspective. That's another one of those meditations that you can do to increase the visibility of your third eye, of your spiritual vision. Just imagine birth from the baby's perspective and what's happening, and you're being pushed and pulled and pressure and pain and I'm stuck, and this cord is wrapped around my leg, and all, think of it from that perspective, and it mirrors to a great degree what our human journey is spiritually, and encountering weather. And when I say weather, I mean life's challenges, the crossroads of life. It's weather. And we are being asked a lot. The baby is being asked to do a lot and to go through a lot and to endure a lot. And to a certain degree, we say it wasn't the child's choosing. Mom and daddy chose to get together. But we chose before we come in. We really do. We chose before we were born. We chose before we were sculpted in the flesh. We chose when we were only spirit and only understood spirit, and may have contained all the knowledge of lives that we had lived before, but also the lives that everyone else had lived before, because we're spirit. And then we're forced into this clay vessel to come into this plastic world. And I say plastic because, think of plastic in the most horror movie thriller like, characteristics. This world is malleable. This world is made of all the same stuff, but it gets shifted around, moved around, recycled, burnt, denigrated, only to grow up again somewhere else in the universe, only to come back up again in your yard somewhere else, as a weed or a plant. It's a very plastic world. Everything we see is, we have convinced ourselves for our sanity as humans that our table is real, our chairs are real, this computer is real. But it's real plastic, it's real wood, it's real atoms and molecules that only need to be broken down and then to be reshaped again. So the illusion, I call it an illusion of challenge, the illusion of it being a problem. It's pain when it's not in your favor. It's pain when you can't walk, you can't move, you don't have mobility. But is it pain when you're bringing life into the world? And thus is it pain when you're making your transition to the next level. Some people leave peacefully. Some people die with a smile on their face. Some people die and like I described birth, show no signs of discomfort. Show no sign. Oh, he died peacefully. That's what we say on the news. She died peacefully in her sleep. And that's supposed to mean without any pain, without any complications, without any suffering. Because we as the living need to feel that our loved one didn't suffer. Though we have no real proof of that. Not really. We don't have no real proof of that. We don't have no real proof to what degree grandma in her Alzheimer's, in her senility, really feel any of that at all going out. And we all have seen occasions where people check out long before their body check out. We know the soul's gone. We know the spirit's gone. We know that part is gone. And the body is just a vessel. So when we're walking these spirit paths, Kiona, when we're trying to make these decisions, we're trying to come to these crossroads, ease up on yourself a little bit in terms of the judgment. Not just the judgment of yourself, but the judgment of what this is supposed to look like, what this is supposed to feel like, what's supposed to be happening right now when I pray, when I meditate, when I close my eyes, when I do this ritual. Ease up a little bit on the judgment and allow your imagination to open your third eye a little bit. Allow your third eye to see a little bit more clearly. Am I making sense to you? How far have I digressed? And bring me back if I need to refocus.
No, you're right on point. You're right on point. I thought I had went into Spookville because 3 years ago, my third eye is always, I've always had spirituality, but 3 years ago I met a guy, and after that, my third eye was open to where I thought I was losing my mind. Like I thought I was going to have to go check myself in somewhere. Because I didn't, it's like I awakened. And I was like, how can you be intimate with somebody that you're not married to and it awaken you?
Well, just like tantric sex, which we've never really discussed in any detail on this show, a lot of you don't realize I even have that knowledge, a great deal of that knowledge. I actually have a tarot deck that's tantric, that has all the positioning and information, and so yeah, there's a physical activity going on that requires a certain level of stimulation, sexualization, intimacy, but there's a higher level spiritual thing going on in tantric sex, and you folks have to understand that anytime you connect with the person, you're absorbing a certain amount of their energy. Excuse me, a certain amount of their energy, and it does not always have to be through sex. You've befriended people, you have cousins, you have family members, you have girlfriends, boyfriends that you hang out with, and you absorb their behaviors. You absorb their language, you absorb their accent. Some of us are better at it than others. I am great at languages. All I need to do is hear it. Just like I play the piano. All I need to do is hear it enough times, and I can mimic it. I can play it. So I absorb every dialect of every place I've ever lived. I've lived all over the country. And so there's sometimes people can hear sort of the southern, mid-Atlantic mix of my sort of upbringing. There are others who can sort of hear just the Louisiana, just the New Orleans, that I've absorbed over the last 2 decades or more. I can sound like a New Yorker, on a dime. I can sound like someone from Boston, on a dime. Just talking about Boston, will change how I say words, how I enunciate certain words, how we say ka, will change. So intimacy from a sexual perspective is a whole nother level. And particularly for a woman, because science has demonstrated that a man deposits DNA in a woman. And that might be scary to some people. That might be a little frightful to others. I'm not trying to get into nobody's business. I'm not seeing into anybody's closet. I'm not counting anybody's bedmates. But you absorb their DNA. That's science. That's science. A man leaves DNA in a woman that stays there forever. And so, yeah, that's why it's easy for a woman to invoke that emotion, to smell him and he's not there, to feel her and she's not there anymore, to feel their thoughts, to hear their thoughts, to project thoughts at them, and then they call, and then they respond, then they show up on your social media. That's nobody's imagination. That's real talk. So if we're going to be honest about it, Kiona, and you always been honest, your question is on the point. Absolutely, there's going to be some toxic residue that resides in your psyche, in your spirit body, in your emotional body. That part can be addressed. That part can be adjusted. And so you have to be clean, literally and figuratively. You have to re-look at sex and intimacy and who I'm sleeping with and why. Even when I was young, I just didn't get the one night stand. I just didn't understand the hookup. And I don't get it today. I don't. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not standing in a position of judgment. I'm saying that as a spirit body, as an individual, as a human, I don't get it. Because of who I am spiritually and the knowledge that has always been a part of my psychic makeup, of my psyche, I've never gotten that. I've never understood that. I've never understood attraction to the inanimate thing. I'm not averse to pictures. I've got classic tabletop black porn books that go back to the 60s and the 70s. That should tell you why I have them. Finding pictures of black people together in any kind of real intimate setting is rare in our culture. We got a lot of white porn, a lot of crazy porn, but finding black people together, people of color together, and artistic, because these are tabletop, glossy, fashion from the 60s and the 70s. So anytime you hook up you're taking in their energy. So, I know what I was saying. So the idea of seeing porn just for the sake of sex, just for the sake of arousal, I don't get that because there's no personality there. Who is that person? What is that person really like? What is that person really made of? What does that person really believe? I can't turn that off. And a lot of women can't turn that off. And that's why it's a lot of women and a lot of men who are operating with feminine energy. That's why it's hard for you to let go, hard for you to cut the ties. It's easier for you to deal with what I'm dealing with than to have to learn a new person all over again. But part of that is you're taking in that DNA material. I know that sounds nasty, but it's the truth. That's science. And so Tom, Dick, and Harry walk with you unless you silence them. That's part of the story. I'm about to tell a secret now. That's part of the story in Yemaya and why Yemaya cut Olokun's tongue out and chained him to the bottom of the sea. I invited you into my lair. I invited you into my sacred space. What Tina Marie say, come inside. you know, and so she allowed him to come inside. And then there was this in the story, in the Pataki, that he had access to her secrets, had access to her iyami, had access to her power. And rather than have him leave the underworld, leave the spirit realm, leave the spirit of the ancestors, because the ocean is also considered as a realm of the ancestors, and carry that knowledge back into the realm of, and taken advantage of in a negative way, because Olokun represents the hidden things, the mysteries behind voodoo, the mysteries behind what's at the bottom of the sea, the mysteries behind healing arts, the mysteries. So she cut his tongue out and chained him to the bottom of the sea to prevent that. So, and the chain absolutely could be referencing DNA, the DNA chain, and that information, that material now being carried down to the next generation. And particularly the stuff that we don't address, that we don't fix, that we don't repair. So it's a dangerous act. Promiscuity is a dangerous act. I'm not being moralistic. This has nothing to do with my moral compass. This ain't about my values versus your values. This ain't about my religion versus your religion. I'm not speaking from that perspective. I'm speaking biologically and I'm speaking spiritually. Promiscuity is very dangerous. And you are indeed adding layers of crazy to more crazy because we often attract the same spirit. So it might not be the same guy, might not be the same woman, might not be the same person, but the same energy, the same spirit, the same toxins, the same footprint, the same vibration that you are familiar with and might desire. But more importantly, the stronger energetic pull is what we're used to, what we know, what we will accept. And that's why it's so dangerous to accept disrespect, to accept bad behavior one time, two times, because the third time it's locked in. And so you set a precedence that it's okay to disrespect me. It's okay to come inside and step on my womb. It's okay to come inside and leave your baggage for me now to have to clean up, fix, and repair. So you're being guided appropriately. I try to come at it as safely and as cleanly and as humbly and without disrespecting you in any way. But your guides are leading you right. It's tricky. It's tricky.
No, you did the right thing because I mean, you know I love you. You know I love you because you gonna give it to me. It's gonna be 3 doses of reality, and that's why I asked.
Yeah, I mean, there are people I'm connected to forever. And I can enumerate them. I know them by name. I know where they at right now. I know where they live. I know how they living. And of course, they've gone on with their life in most occasions. My soulmate sticks to me. 33 years and counting. My soulmate sticks to me. And so I can't shake my soulmate whether we're together or not. Can't shake it. Can't shake it. Email, text, phone, at the door, can't, can't shake it. And I'm over feeling uncomfortable about it, being angry about it, being disappointed about it, because some of you are disappointed, you know, and if you heard what I said, the soul can move, the soul can relocate. So you can call your soulmate back to you prepared, that's more in line with where you're at, that's more capable of meeting you where you are. But you got to do your homework to get there. You got to do your homework to get there. You got to clean up your own stuff. You got a shadow box. Okay, you got a shadow box, and so that means confronting your stuff. And when I was able to confront my stuff, didn't mean the soulmate didn't keep coming back, still broken and unrepaired. Uh, but that energy of the soulmate, authentic energy, was able to transfer to other people, in other very positive ways, and fix and repair and address other people's relationships. Some of you who've talked to me off air, you know what I'm talking about. I reference me, I reference my life, I reference my parents' life and on many occasions as a way of getting people to understand what I'm saying in the course of a divination. So do your work, cleanse your womb, literally and figuratively. Cleanse your insides, literally and figuratively. Get it out, purge, cry if you have to, shout if you have to, be angry if you have to work that out in the safety of your sacred space, your spirit space, literally and figuratively. Work that out. Otherwise, it will set up blocks that you have to deal with later on. It will become a permanent algorithm that you will either end up having to go with, surrender to, resist, or fight against, but it'll stick to you and it'll stick with you. And it can reproduce. It can reproduce. It can show up in future relationships. I've seen it show up in people's children. That's why sometimes, the broken family is so difficult because mama can only see daddy in the child. Mama can only see what's not good for her in the child. And sometimes that shows up in how a parent would treat their children. Because men do the same thing. Will abuse the child, treat the children aggressively, deny the children because of mama. In some relationship, some energy with mama. And we don't think, if we don't know to think, that that energy is embedded in your womb. A man can get up.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Well, as you see, that was an abrupt ending on Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio ended with me saying that energy is embedded in your womb, but it's embedded in the generations. It affects the boys, the girls, all that follow. Even when we think of those of us who don't have children, never carried children, we pass that on to other children and to other people's children, to the rest of humanity. So we've got to all do our inner work. There's no way around the shadow work as a part of being really spiritual, as a part of being no real practitioner, part of being no real witch, as a part of being any real reader. And sometimes we look at tarot as being on the lower end, the softer end, the more innocent end, the less dangerous end. Oh, I'm not going to do any harm by doing tarot. You are shuffling people's fate every time you do tarot. You're shuffling your fate and you're shuffling the fate of those that you're reading every time you do tarot. So in the scope of things, tarot is the most volatile because it's paper, number one, as an implement, and two, because you're often addressing people's blocks, issues, complications as it relates to tarot. And the reader carries that and has to clean that off. carries that and has to process that? How do you hear a tragic story and get up and move on to the next person? How do you see somebody cry and wipe the dust off, as the Arabs say, wipe the dust off of your feet and pick up and move on to the next reading, pick up and move on to the next person? That's why I found the commercialization of reading in the shops, because I tested it. Many of you know I tested it. That was a very volatile environment to work in. I mean, I had pure crazy, pure demon, pure jinn coming at me every day sitting in that rock shop doing those readings. One day, she, meaning the owner, allowed a naked woman to come into the shop. Many of you are familiar with Carnival. Y'all familiar with Brazil. You're familiar with Bourbon Street. You're familiar with the body painters, who paint you, typically from the waist up, and you're topless, but you got on tiger paint or a birthday cake, some kind of design, that covers you up. But that's not the time now, with cocktail in hand, to decide you want to come in and get a really real spiritual connection with a reader like me. That's the difference between me and the fortune teller. That's the difference between me and the Jackson Square psychic reader who is often homeless or on opioids or the like, and who's down there trying to make their $5, $10, $20 to get their next bump. You're not getting that when you come to me. You're not getting the call me now 800 number that you see being pushed at you on TV every day, every night at 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning, coming out of the state of California, for $1 a minute. What can you discuss with an attorney, with a real estate professional, with a medical professional in a minute for $1? Think about it that way. Process it that way. And I get there's a blind spot. Some of you who've had my readings, who've had a consultation with me, you ain't hearing no blind spot. You understand exactly what I'm saying. You know what a 2-hour reading with me is. You know what the 90-minute reading with me is. And the volume of information that people have to record and write down. Record and write down. And maybe have 2 recorders. Maybe you want to record it. You want to do Skype and record that and take notes. Now, I'm not being arrogant. Ask anybody in this room who's ever had a reading from me. The volume of information you got for the last 2 hours, 3 hours is a demonstration of what people are getting from me in a divination. So, man, okay, Kim, I see. Okay, it's not possible to have more than one soulmate. If you understand, Kayla, that a soulmate is a soul, but the soul can move from person to person. It's not how we've locked the soul into place. One soul, one body, one person stays with that body until they die. It's not like that. When we're talking about your soulmate, we're talking about a whole nother level of soul energy. Because ultimately, when we're looking at soulmates, we want the higher energy. We want the best energy. We want the perfected energy. We're seeing a couple or a trio or a group, because souls don't travel in pairs. They travel in groups. So every soulmate is not meant to be your partner. Every soulmate is not meant to have sex with you. Every soulmate is not meant to be married to. If we're talking about soulmates now, soulmates are about progression of the soul to move something further spiritually. Now, sometimes that involves having children, creating businesses, marrying, partnerships. There's some world-renowned partnerships that ain't about marriage, but are about a soul-level connection. Procter & Gamble, I don't think they're married. But they have a soul level connection that has helped them progress in business, have helped them progress There are people with a soul level connection in ministry that helps groups of people, groups of churches, groups of organizations move forward in ministry. I'm attracting my soulmate. And if my soulmate shows up as my partner, that's one thing. If my soulmate shows up as somebody that can handle taxes, finances, business, acquiring properties, that's my soulmate too. And it don't mean we have to bump purses. It don't mean we have to, hook up, to make that happen. So we've been miseducated about soulmates greatly from Western culture. We see Cupid with arrows and boxes of chocolate, and sugar hearts, Valentine's Day. The West has it all confused and mixed up. But the soulmate is really about soul level connection, organization, management, manifestation, and then that soul level group getting together and moving that energy forward in some way. And so sometimes it's your partner that you should be in a relationship with. But relationship is a word that we in the West, I don't know, we don't take that seriously enough. Relationship, the relationship, whether it's love, whether it's business, whether it's friendship, we got relationship twisted. We don't apply relationship with any sense of real rules, protocols, morality, integrity, way of doing things. There's a way to go about a relationship with your mother. There's a way to go about a relationship with your lover. There's a way to build relationship with your employer or your potential employers in terms of my career. I'm building relationship right now with my potential employer. The person who's going to hire me for the next role, to be in their movie, to be in their independent film, is watching me right now. And this is the beginnings of our building relationship. Now, at some point, you got to meet at the crossroads. Both parties got to talk, got to communicate, got to share their ideas, got to share their wants and dreams. And I know it's corny, millennials, but you're not willing to do that before the hookup. I'm on Baidu. I'm not on Baidu for the same reasons y'all are on Baidu. I'm on Baidu to talk to people all over the world, find out where the voodoo is all over the world, find out where the spirituality and religion is all over the world, find out where the artisans and the musicians and the actors and the producers are all over the world. That's why I'm on Baidu. But I see why you are on Baidu. I see what you are doing on Baidu. And often it's, my name is, and I got a face picture, which may or may not be you. Can I see your tits? Can I see your vagina? Can I see your, and like I said, for somebody like me, it takes so much more to build a connection, to build a like ship, let alone a fellowship or a friendship. It takes a lot. I need to know who you are. I need to know what you are. There's a word for people like me. I'm trying to Google it right now. Sapiosexual might be a word. Demiosexual might be a word. I've got to know something about you. And we're not seeing that a whole lot in present day dating, in present day single life. And I hate to say sex culture, because sex should, has become a culture that's removed from life. It's removed from reality to some degree. We say sex and sexualism is the reality, but then we remove it from reality by trying to make it as illusionary and aloof and fantasy based and not real as possible. So what people seeing in voodoos and stuff, I heard it's like Plenty of Fish, Divine Self-Healing. I've never been on it. What I like about it is it's a lot like Skype, except people have a profile. People are willing to post more pictures on Baidu than they typically have attached to their profile on Skype. People might have a video of themselves. I got my commercials on my Skype. On my Baidu. And then I use Google Translate because if you're familiar with Baidu, everybody's there. Every country that's got internet and people have access to it and people know how to get to it, they're there. And I like Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Brazil, Paris, Amsterdam. They're there, and we are there. We are there. I'm finding people of color there. I'm finding people of other ethnicities and races that have a different perspective on race and racism and white supremacy and African culture and world culture than what we limit ourselves to here in the West. So I find, unfortunately, that black men in America ain't got no conversation. On the average, they're not willing to talk about the weather. They're not willing to talk about roots. They're not willing to talk about, unless you talk about your conscious brothers, Hoodoo occultism and Paul and people who listen to my show, participate in my show, who are involved in ATR. But as a rule, especially for you sisters and women out there that's trying to date, all they want to know is how big your tits are. Can I see your ass? Am I lying? Keon, am I lying? Try talking about politics for any length of time. Try talking about history for any length of time. I find that easier to do with the Brazilian. I find that easier to do with a Nigerian. I find that easier to do with an Egyptian. And we've also been programmed to fear foreigners because the oppressive system don't want us to get together. So they pump a little bit of truth, real information, but a whole lot of propaganda to keep us from communicating with them. So we fear the scam artist. We fear the fraudster. We fear the romance fraudster. You got the Africans that hook up with you in social media, and they love you in 15 minutes. Oh, I love you. I want you to be my wife. But can you keep my phone on and send me money pack? That kind of thing. Okay, you block and keep it moving. Regina, you block and keep it moving. You block and keep it moving. And sometimes I let people hang around for entertainment. I don't block, but I put them on mute. To the best of my ability, because sometimes the site lets you know when people are looking and checking. But I look, I see, but I don't respond. If it's beneath me, I don't respond. It's not on my level, I don't respond. If it's rude, I don't respond. Now if it don't make any sense, I ask questions. Well, what does that mean? Can you explain that? I know things get lost in Google Translate between English and Portuguese. So I asked them to say that again a different way. Can you got to use your Iana Van Zant therapeutic language. What I believe I heard you say was, or can you repeat that? But once you get past the foolishness, it's absolutely people on there. And for anybody who cares, foolishness don't stop at the chalk line. I've met plenty of white people, Europeans, people of other Spaniards, full of foolishness. Foolishness is global. Foolishness ain't a black thing. Foolishness is global. So stop saying, I'm going to get me a white man because, all the black men ain't right. No, you're going to find some really jacked up white men too. Foolishness is human right now. What's foolishness is that we don't change how we do things, and yet we keep encountering the same thing. It doesn't mean judge yourself. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means reexamine how you're doing things, how you're responding, what you're asking, what you're saying, what you're envisioning. Rework your reality, and then that which you need, that which desire, will come to you. I'm going to have to move forward. my mama's going to be really upset, about me eating and drinking water and taking a break and getting out of this chair and exercising, getting up off my sciatic nerve. My mama going to be really upset about these 15 minutes overtime, 3 hours and 15 minutes overtime. So all is a blessing. I am moving forward. I have to move forward. All is a blessing. I'm surprised Blog Talk Radio has not ended us, Kiona. I don't know what that's about. Say something just so I know that y'all are still there. 323 is still on Blog Talk and 334 is still on Blog Talk. But if I don't hear y'all, then maybe Blog Talk has ended and I just don't realize it. So yeah, they would have ended at 3 o'clock on the dot. Did you all hear them end the show? I didn't. She would have said, thank you for calling, goodbye. Maybe I talked over it. But yes, Rob Stone, you can always email me. I'm still responding to email. I'm here for you. But I haven't seen anything, haven't received anything yet in terms of what you're, Rob Stone, we got this thing. I haven't seen or heard. But I'm looking. I desire, so I'm looking. I appreciate you all's help. Please visit my website at www.houseofthedivineprince.com. Send your request, comments, and requests to DivinePrince at houseofthedivineprince.com. DIVINE. I'm not Divine. Divine is an old dead drag queen from the 70s. I'm not Prince. Prince is a world-renowned pop R&B singer performer who recently passed away. I am Divine Prince with 2 eyes, Divine Prince at houseofthedivineprince.com. I appreciate your offerings, your donations, your love, your support by way of my direct PayPal link. And that is paypal.me/the Divine Prince. And I capitalize it. I capitalize THE, capitalize DIVINE. I capitalize PINCE in my links. I just do it as a habit. I know the URL reduces everything to its lowest common denominator. But that's just what I do when I say it so that you get it. But it's PayPal. It's www.paypal.me/the Divine Prince as one word. I welcome you. I thank you. I'm appreciative for your support, for you showing up, coming into my house, coming into my home, coming into my temple space. Please kick off your shoes, stay a while. I will be forward momentarily. All is truly and indeed a blessing. Ashe, Asheo, Ashe.